Christopher.
Okay, perfect. And I'll sit out with Jenna.
Okay, we're back.
Okay, we're back right now. Okay, so let's head up, you guys. We're going.
And text when you're at text. You have text here. Text here.
Okay, you ready? Okay, maybe he isn't home. Maybe he's pretending not to be home. I don't want to wake up all the kids, so.
Oh yeah.
There might be a spare key. Hey there, how are you? Guys, you back home?
Oh yeah, he's home. Yeah.
Did we chat with him?
Oh yeah.
We're
Probably.
tell him the home teachers are here.
Oh okay. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, great.
Oh, where's the other dogs?
Oh, did he escape? Okay, well, that's the last thing we want to do. Come here. Hi, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Great. Sorry to wake you up.
Yeah.
We don't want to do that.
Just going to check them out.
Oh,
Oh, we're getting dogs right now.
you have 4 of them?
We have a lot of them. Yeah. Come on. Come on.
Well, they're home, so that's
All
good.
right.
Yeah. We've learned something about the Hughes already.
I'm sorry about that.
So that's okay.
I'm just going to get the mail to see if my package came.
Get the mail?
Yeah.
Well, we would have picked it up.
I know. I should have.
Could have done that. Did you get a lot of visitors this late?
I'm sure they they seem very
Prepared.
yeah. They know the drill.
Did you ask him if this is the Hughes house?
No, I didn't.
I don't think he has any kids.
Uh-oh.
Oh, that's interesting.
No, he does. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. So, anyway.
What are you doing here? Why are you at my house? There's laws about this. What time of night is it? You shouldn't even be here. My child answered the door. I'm not supposed to even answer the door at 10:30 at night.
And your dogs answered the door. How
Did
many
you
do
see
you
my
have?
dogs? I got a bunch of dogs, you know? For just these kinds of moments, when people come, when surly characters come to my door here to harass me. This is your 24-hour deal. How many hours have you been into this?
14.
Are you delirious? You must be delirious if you're here. If you're here, you're delirious. Do you want to come out? I got a dog that might. Let's see where Ruby is. She's mean. No, she's not here.
Yeah, I want to come in.
How's it going?
How are you, my brother?
Good.
So, I didn't know you had this many dogs. I've learned something already.
My wife is kind of the neighborhood dog whisperer. Now, one of those dogs is my sister-in-law's dog because they come for play dates and they stay a while and they. It might be an HOA violation, so don't tell anybody on this live feed.
Don't worry, there's no Republicans listening to my feed.
Yeah, nobody in this neighborhood. This is a respectable neighborhood. They're not watching your feed. I agree with you. So here you are. It's hour 14 of your live deal. I saw you this morning. I shouldn't admit that I watch your feed. How's it been?
It's been good.
I don't know if you're going to get a lot of votes out here. I don't know.
Really?
I don't know what's going to happen.
We had a great conversation with Mayor Wilson and with Congressman McAdams and
How many Republicans are you prank calling and knocking on their doors and running away?
Then we're going to Howard Stevenson. We're going to hit the governor's mansion.
Good.
You know, Gary.
Yeah, he's got a great sense of humor. He's going to love it. He's going to absolutely love it.
Now we're driving down to where Cox is. Down to St. Pete County.
Yeah, there you go. I'm sure he'll appreciate that.
He'll appreciate that.
You're only at hour 14. You got plenty of time.
Yeah,
you got plenty of time to get there.
We can stop in Provo to Bramble. He'd be fun.
That'll be a blast. That'll be a lot of fun too.
So we got everything all kind of up and about.
So are you here to announce your support for the inland port? Is that what you're here to do? To tell me that you're going to finally come to your senses and And
All right.
we're going to get some great things accomplished. Look at me say we. I'm out of there. I'm not even relevant anymore. I still can't get it out of my head.
Irrelevant,
Yes,
huh? Yeah, we're too old has-beens, huh?
We are.
We're not in the legislature anymore.
No, we're not running it anymore.
So,
You know, I can tell you're tired. This is good. I like to see you.
You think I'm tired,
It's a little
huh?
low energy.
I'm just
low
trying to
energy.
be. I'm just trying to be
Gym
low
right now.
key. Yeah, you know, and I need coffee. Do you have any coffee?
No. Crystal likes iced coffee, but
Really?
she buys it. She doesn't make it. so.
Okay. Anyway, so I wanted to let's talk for a minute about the inland port.
Well, how long do you want to come in, Ray?
Let's take 10 minutes. Is that okay?
Yeah, you
Is
want
that going to
to?
disrupt your house?
No, not at all.
All right, let's
Come
do it. Yeah.
Come on in. Come on in,
Let's see the
crew.
momentum.
I forgot to tell my wife that this was.
Is she okay with
There
that?
could be a home invasion happening. Let me look at my house and see what's going on in here.
I love the
I
dogs.
think we're good. We can sit in here. Look at this.
Here comes.
Here come the dogs. So my wife's getting a new table. Which one do you like better of the two tables? This is a new one. This is one she wants to get rid of. I actually like this.
I kind of like that one better.
I do too. That's Ruby. Look, this is Ruby. She's a sweetheart.
I thought you said, is this the one that's
Yeah,
going
this
to eat
is a
me?
ferocious one, but she's not really. She just looks that way. She's not.
She's
She's
like a
a
boxer.
sweet. And she's a rescue dog, huh? I don't know who would. They cut her ears, whoever owned her, but she's a sweetie. She really is. She's a.
You know, have you thought of getting that done?
He's so funny. Isn't he? Yeah,
Hi,
that's-
baby.
yeah, Ruby's a good
You're
dog.
such a good dog.
forgot-
Is this one you're babysitting?
No, that's the other dog.
No, let's
It's,
sit over
yeah,
here.
it's kind of crowded here.
Is
Let's
the
go somewhere else, because
Has the president been here?
President. No, not tomorrow.
Okay.
No. That's my boy Holden. Holden.
Hi, Holden.
This is Jim Backus. He's running. He's a state senator. He's a colleague of mine. We used to do some shows together, and now he's running for mayor of Salt Lake City.
Awesome. Is this a Star Wars, sir?
No, that's Reagan. Now Reagan's the one that answered the door.
Okay, great.
Good Republican name. That's one of our babies. That's what you know,
What are
Krista.
you doing here?
Hi.
So he's on his 24-hour Facebook marathon.
Oh my gosh!
Thank you
Look
for-
at
And
you!
you've all wondered that
Amazing.
you're kind of the dog whisperer with all these dogs running around our house
We
right
went to
now.
the pound today, and
No, I saw the thing about the and we were counting. Made me almost cry. I can't remember. How are you? How's it going?
And so far, so far so good. But
So what you're doing 24 hours of
yeah, just bothering people. Most of the time. I
what's your
thought,
next
They felt
plan?
very
Where you going
brave
to
coming
next?
out here.
so
Yeah, you bet you're not.
Look how
we've
Ruby
just
likes,
been,
likes Jim.
with the
That
congressman.
character maybe. I don't know what's
with
going
the
on with
with
Ruby. I thought she
Mayor, Jenny, and we're just going all around, and who's more fun to bother than Greg? Not
Yeah.
you.
Why don't you stick him in the car with you and take him around? That'll be
Wouldn't
good.
that be great?
Thanks, honey.
Be
Thanks. That's exciting.
Aw.
So what's it like having him home more?
See, I used to think this public service was a sacrifice for the whole family. Turns out she thinks I have too many opinions. Now
I
that
know.
I'm
Always
home.
tell my family, I'm like, he's still here. Oh my God, in the morning, he's still here. I haven't had my thing, like how, I had my life down, and then now he's,
I'm around a lot more.
He's like, I'm gonna be on the phone, so if those dogs can't bark. I'm like, then
Yeah.
you need to go.
How do I carry on a phone conversation around here when we have all these dogs? That's Ralphie, right? And that is not our dog. That's the dog we're babysitting. He's a little skittish.
Yeah.
That's Tank. He's kind of he's a mixed breed, and the breed kind of went a little bad. He's kind of a little short torso, long legs.
People say that about me.
Yeah, me too. Says about me too. Tanky, he's a good pup. He's a good dog.
I just love
Okay,
dogs.
no, so really, like, you're going around all night or what? What's
Oh
your...
yeah, so we were just going through all the places because this is very far from Salt Lake.
Yeah.
It's like 4
You feel like you
hours.
fell off
You
the
didn't
face
know
of the
that
earth.
life existed past what,
I know.
21st South? Were you didn't know it happened?
But it's like 17 stops.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
And there it is. So anyway, we recounted. I couldn't even remember all this stuff, but it's just been really fun and amazing.
That's cool.
And talking
That's
to
a
so
great
many
idea. I
people.
love it.
Yeah. So.
You gonna try any pot brownies or anything while you're out and about?
That
This
must
is
be
Vegas.
going to Denver.
Different
Yeah,
place.
yeah, yeah.
All right, I'm kidding.
But
It was
medical
dominating.
cannabis is legal in the state of Utah in dosage form with a doctor's recommendation.
And what do you think about that?
You can have it now. The state hasn't stepped up its part, but you can
But
have
let's let
that.
him say what he thinks about that.
We met actually with a lady today with MS, and
Oh,
we
wow.
met her at the Capitol, and she told her story, and I almost, you know.
Yeah.
So it really helps some people,
Yeah.
and I just think we ought to make it readily available,
Yeah.
you know, for people that really need it.
Yeah.
So do you try to stay out of politics? Do you like politics? Or?
I love politics. I
Oh,
just don't want to be. I would never do what you're doing. I wouldn't put myself out there, but you
Yeah.
guys take a lot of abuse. But
And I don't take as much as crap.
Yeah, I know. It's true.
Because when you have real power, you take real abuse.
no, I just think of you as mayor. Oh my gosh, it will be fantastic.
Well, thank
Oh,
you.
it'll be so entertaining.
That's the kiss of death, honey. Now see what
Oh,
happened
wait,
here.
no,
on Fa-
I hate
what
him.
just happened on
That's right,
Facebook
I'm sorry.
Live is a member of the Hughes
I
home
hate him.
just praised this man and
But
his
I love
candidacy,
animals.
which
I love animals.
The important half.
we
of
didn't
the
mean to do
use
that.
of-
We really didn't.
That's true. Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hurt you like that.
Did you see what just happened there? We're so sorry. This is a risk you run when you
I'm
come
sorry.
here.
I shouldn't have
Said
said
her,
that.
it was a wedding on Saturday at Grand America. And then there was a HRC dinner, the Human Rights Campaign dinner.
Oh, wow.
So I was invited to the wedding and to the HRC, but it was perfect because they
Yeah,
were right
that
next
was
to each
nice.
other.
That worked
And
out.
Senator Hatch was there.
Oh,
And
wow.
he's a lot more, he looked great,
Yeah.
actually, you know.
I had lunch with him last week. He is.
Yeah,
He's
I mean,
still-
he's
still
really,
staying at it, yeah.
but I mean, he's really, I think he's, without the stress, he was a lot better.
Yeah.
So he said hi and we talked a minute and he said, so, you know, something about endorsements. And I went, well, yeah, my opponents, you know. So he didn't,
might-
he
might
didn't,
do
he didn't
endorse.
offer to endorse me.
Oh,
He did not.
okay.
Want to make that clear,
Yeah.
but, you know.
Again, another one of those spent fuel
Yeah,
rods for the
yeah,
campaign
no, no,
process,
it didn't
having
happen.
an endorsement like
That
that.
didn't
Yeah.
happen, so.
By the
anyway.
way, breaking news, Ice Cube was at KUTV today. Remember, you know, the rap star? And you know what he said when he met me? He looked at the camera and said, vote for that man. So I kind of have the endorsement
I
of
can
Ice
kind of
Cube.
show it right.
So I was on.
That's true. If that is that absolute
I
truth.
was on
Ice Cube said,
radio.
vote for that man. That was me.
Okay, let him talk.
I was on Radio from Hell this morning,
Yeah.
and guess who was there?
Who?
Ice Cube.
No.
He was?
Ice Cube was there, yeah.
Did
So
he say
there was
vote
a
for
little
you?
bit of water right where,
Oh.
the place where
Stop.
he had pipe in, and he
No.
said, no, he was there, but we actually missed him. So
Did you miss him?
No.
yeah, so
He probably would have endorsed you.
he has two big SUVs.
I
You
know.
know?
Oh,
It's really exciting. It's
okay.
really exciting. It's a big moment for me. It's like a
It's kind of huge.
Did you know he was going to be there?
no. And then when he was there, I kind of like got into a picture, and then I know his songs. He has a new one that came out, and I shared some of the lyrics. He was so surprised.
Yeah.
He said, "Vote for that man," because I knew his music.
This is the local congressman behind you. Oh, great.
Hey, thanks.
That's a local
Watch.
It's a good day.
Listen,
Vote for that man.
that was me. That was Ice Cube saying, "Vote for that man." I was that man. Did you see that? That's a big moment.
That's because he had no idea what you believed.
I know, exactly.
No
Exactly. He
idea.
didn't. You know what? We're not telling him. Don't say a word.
I'm telling him,
Don't
get
say
Ice
it
Cube
yet.
on the
Wait,
phone.
wait. I got it on loop. Ready? Listen. Ready?
Vote for that man.
Ah, there he said it again.
Vote for that man.
Said it again.
I heard it. I heard
Oh,
it. I
thank
heard
you,
it.
honey. Thank you.
Oh my.
I just keep looping it all night. I've been looping that.
Unbelievable.
Endorsed by Ice
Is
Cube.
this the longest you've spent at a location where you're holding you guys
So
hostage?
you want to talk issues?
Yeah, let's
We were
talk
gonna
a
sit
little
down, but we
bit.
got two tables.
That's so
We had
cool.
two tables in there, so we couldn't
Oh,
sit down
yeah.
there.
We'll go
We
when
got
you
a big
want
You
to
can see my
go.
new cute coffee tube. I'm sorry. Greg doesn't tell me what's happening in my life.
Yeah, I
And
forgot.
there's a dog thing.
Okay.
Lost right here.
Okay.
Okay, hold on. Let me turn the other light on.
Okay, we'll go here. Oh, we need. Can we do this without Natalie going?
Do we have enough light
I'll
here?
turn me turn the light on back there.
Does the light work? Do we have a good enough light?
The piano
Okay.
light, you can shine it on Greg and say.
Okay.
All right, look.
Uh-oh, Ruby's gonna want to join the conversation. Come here, Ruby. Come here.
Let's talk inland port. Oh,
Ruby wants to talk.
Oh, yeah. You
See, Ruby wants to talk inland port.
You too, buddy. Yeah.
Ruby.
She's like this with everybody, right?
Not really. I actually thought I thought more of her. I thought she had a better character. What's
Nothing to
going
bark
on
about here.
You're a Republican dog. She's been very conservative, you know?
She looks like Winston Churchill.
Exactly. See, that's... So it's all over you. Okay.
All right,
All right, here we go.
so
Stop. Krista, call Ruby.
there's 17,000 acres. You agree that was part of Salt Lake City, right? You don't have any.
Yeah, but it was undeveloped. It was marsh. You didn't have any water. You didn't have any sewer. You didn't have any gas. You didn't have anything out there
But
to actually
it's
develop
on
it.
the
It was
territory of Salt Lake City.
Yes, it is.
Okay. Then the prison went out there.
Yes.
And a lot of the issues that stopped people from developing it were made
Overcome.
more attractive because
Correct.
those
right.
services were
So
then out there.
300 million in infrastructure came into that area that was not there before, which made that land more viable. Correct.
And it was a tremendous mistake to put the prison there, it turns out, because we didn't take into consideration the issues about actually building there. I mean, some of it is increased construction costs, but some of it was
The land is harder to build on.
that $600,000 that we spent on that feasibility study was totally wasted because they screwed it up, and it turned out to be a lot more expensive to build there than those guys had figured.
So we knew that there would be it would be more expensive with that land, with geopiers and things you would have to do there. But what it wasn't going to do was, because it wasn't a developed area that had any future to it unless you put that extra cost into it and spent extra money to build there, you didn't interrupt the master plans of West Jordan City or Saratoga Springs or some of those other areas that the consultants had identified. And so you didn't want to take those master plans and interrupt them, but you need to be near workforce, you need to be near hospitals, you need to be near volunteerism. There's a huge volunteerism site. So you had to be near all those things, but not trying to interrupt a city's plans otherwise. That's why you paid more for the building of it, but politically you were not jamming up cities. And the reason why we didn't think Salt Lake City was being harmed is because absent all that money to build out there, that area wouldn't have been developed.
But it was a
Does that
little
sound
bit of a
okay?
con job to the point where, I mean,
So we're having a perfectly good conversation when we say con job, okay? There's no con job. I just walked through kind of
no,
a
I'm not saying
rational
you. I'm not
process.
saying you.
Okay.
You know, but look, from every perspective on cost, certainly, Saratoga Springs would have been a much better selection, and the population is moving that way as to all this volunteerism and stuff, and they had their master plan, and so did Salt Lake City.
Yeah.
And that, I remember saying in a committee hearing to the consultant that we paid $675,000 to, do you know what's out there? It is, you can't just build, it's gonna go.
Had the option of relocating it, you wouldn't put it there today.
You mean in Draper?
In Draper.
Yeah,
So
we wouldn't do
in
that.
1950, when there was nothing here, that looked like a good site. But today, knowing that it's an Alcatraz-style prison, you got to rebuild one. You wouldn't pick that site, but you don't want to pick a place that's going to have that kind of growth, or that you would be almost repeating what happened here. You want to pick a place that's close to population, but absent the state's large investment, that area wouldn't be developed otherwise. That was it. It's complicated, but I don't think it was done in a draconian or
Sugar House
punitive way.
Park was cool and on the fringes.
Yeah, and then it developed, and they
Until
said, hey, it doesn't work
1953,
anymore.
and
where
then we
it
went
is.
to the rural area of
Yes.
Draper, and now we needed another kind of out of it area.
That's
So
right.
look, it's my kind of contention that the way things kind of happen in the state, you know,
About 5 minutes.
what's that?
5 minutes. We
So,
gotta go.
or what happens?
We gotta go.
Well, then you only have
We're
13
not-
hours left.
What's more important than this?
We're ditching the governor, remember?
Yeah, what'll they do to me, right?
I can't wait. I think they're gonna embrace you with open arms. I think it's gonna go wonderfully. I wouldn't call
We
ahead.
didn't even get
I
to the
would just,
port
in
yet.
fact, don't even knock on the door. Just scale the fence. I think that's like one of the things they love. It really.
Herbert, have you ever seen him stop laughing? I mean, he just loves.
I know.
It's
I
a
just think
joke.
it's gonna be a barrel of laughs. It'll be beautiful.
It would have been easier to. It would have been funnier to knock on Oren's door when he had all those Secret Service agents than it would be to.
Okay, so we were just talking about the prison. I want to jump to the inland port, one of the favorite topics of this mayoral race. I just want to set a stake in the ground that I don't hear in a lot of the, so to speak, that I don't hear in the debates, but is a absolute fact. And though there's landowners out there where this inland port is being developed.
Right.
There were development agreements and reimbursement agreements signed, executed by the mayor and the city council for an inland port.
What does that mean in English?
It means that they said, we agree we're going to use the tax base from this area. We're going to let you build out your curb, your gutters, your roads, your railroads, everything for an inland port. You'll be able to reimburse back from the capture of the sales tax. We will go to the county and the school districts and we'll tell them we're running all this and get this done. They planned a very robust inland port with the landowners of that area. So it's not a question of, are you going to have an inland port or not? The documents were signed and the city had made the decision to have a very robust inland port.
November of 2017, and the legislature didn't pick it up until
So there was
February
a so there was a
18.
bill in the 17th session that was run, but it didn't go anywhere because Salt Lake City said, "Let us show you that we can get this done." And they did those contractual agreements, but at the same time, the city was having a difficult time with the homeless issues, the warring cartels, and an inland port. You know, U.S. Customs bonded for the Western States inland port seemed beyond one city's purview. And by the way, if you have an inland port that has a broader jurisdiction, you can have a Uinta Basin place where the natural resources stay and do not come up. You can have Ogden as a satellite. You can have Tooele potentially and go behind the Oakers and not touch I-15. That broader jurisdiction allows for all of that activity to not land in that northwest quadrant, which should be should be welcome news. But the city decided, and the mayor executed documents that said this will be an inland port. So when I hear people say, do you want one or not want one? The city made the decision before this campaign ever started. There will be an inland port
Before
here.
the legislature, I think what you're saying is before the legislature met and passed their
Yes,
draconian
before we
crap,
met and passed that bill.
in the November before that session, the Salt Lake City mayor and the city council unanimously signed 8 contracts.
They signed some before, but they were even signing contracts while we were in session in 18. In fact, we put in the bill that anything they signed stayed in place as it was, that we wouldn't supersede it. But I guess my only point, Jim, is that people talk, even I hear the mayor talk, like, we don't want an inland port. Well, you signed the agreements. You had agreed to have one, and in fact, the one you were contemplating as a city had a more intense land use than the one that this board is contemplating right now. So, I don't know, just a little factoid
Okay.
to the whole thing.
I got you, and I think it's important to know it's a lot of LLCs.
It's
And-
late too, and it's Friday night. Who's really,
and
listening? As soon as they saw me on there, they hit click and they dropped anyway, maybe.
could you call Trump now or not?
No.
No. Okay.
I was thinking maybe Junior, but no.
It's okay. All right. I think that's something that needs to be looked into. I'm not sure all of those contracts with all of those people that have been gone over, but they're out there. But look, I'll tell you what's got the people of Salt Lake riled, and I think justifiably so, and I think in your heart you will even agree. This was heavy-handed. Mike Levitt said, look, as the mayor of the bluest of the blue, our 203,000 people, you're always walking a tightrope because you got the suburbs that are pretty red and you got the rural areas that are red as red can be. So your job you have to represent your 200,000 people on big important issues. And it's not an agreement between the rest of the state and the city.
Yep.
So whether it's Medicaid expansion or a lot of things, they're different.
Yeah.
So the mayor has to speak out and say, no, the legislature and the governor have this wrong. On one hand. On the other hand, I also got to work with the legislature and the governor because all the big issues have to be solved.
Yes.
And we can't solve homelessness as a little 203,000 people, as we're proving. But together we can
work
solve
together,
it.
right? I agree.
And the same is true with affordable housing.
Yes,
the
I
city
agree.
can't do that. And the same is true with clean air. If we could ever get the legislature to go along with serious stuff, then we would have to do it. So my question is, why were you guys so unbelievably heavy-handed?
So
And that is, why did you completely take away all authority and denudor the city, fire the mayor and the city council, and replace what appears to be in the city this kind of appropriated from somewhere else group of state officials to come in and squash the jurisdiction of the city and the values of the city and just take it over.
So
That's really, really hard because we already don't believe that we share the same values, and then you have to go in and grab this governance and be heavy-handed, and you just ask to be punched around and to create this kind of animosity with the city.
So this is what I would tell you. First off, there was a real interest in working because the bill wasn't just one session long. We started in 17, and there was going to be there was a bill in 17, and Salt Lake City said, we can get this done and we can do it. By 18, we weren't seeing that progress being made, and we think there were great opportunities there. I don't think that people know that during that session, as I was a speaker, Francis Gibson was the majority whip, and Senator Jerry Stevenson was the appropriations chair from the Senate. So you have 3 members of legislative leadership that went down to the working group meeting of the city council and the mayor to participate in their public hearing about this issue. I think that would be a first for the legislature to come down to the city council and work with them and answer questions and go over the details of this, and that was during the session. Us as legislative leadership and our staff, we went to the fairgrounds on a Saturday during the session and met with the citizens for that Saturday up till lunchtime, answering questions, trying to talk. I think there's that. I'm not saying that those aren't our districts that we represent, but I think you were seeing the legislature trying to reach out and dialogue and communicate more than maybe is more broadly known. And at the end of the day, there's a trick that goes on in this legislative session, and you know it. It's called slow baking. You got 45 calendar days, and it's hard to argue with someone that says yes. So we had Salt Lake City saying, and the mayor saying, yes, we want to work with you. Yes, we want to do this. And the days would go, and pretty soon the House didn't get the bill until the evening of the 43rd day. And at that point, the inland port...
Out of 45
out
days?
of 45 days. The evening of the evening of the 43rd day is when the House first got the bill in its possession to even begin its process. And that is a trick used to slow bake, to win or lose, to live or die by a sword. That is where you realize the ability to find common ground is not being mutually pursued when you get a bill with 2 days left out of 45 calendar days. And remember, those 45 calendar days include the weekends, so you got about 33 work days. So out of 33 work days, you've been given 2 left. And so
Speaker,
it changed the pace, but that night that bill was debated, I look back, it was, now all bills on the last 2 nights are debated very quickly, all bills are. It was the longest debate of any bill that was heard that evening that we were debating. But it was admittedly a fast process, but there was a process in 17. We didn't do anything with that bill. We went to the city council, we went to the fairgrounds. We have a member of the city council from that area that's on the Inland Port Board. All the permitting goes through the city desk, the city offices. So I think,
Mr. Speaker,
that is at least
I'm
for your
not-
consideration.
All right, Mr. Speaker.
Have I convinced you?
No.
In fact, I don't want to because that'll kill you in this whole race.
Look.
I mean, you should be hitting me with things right now to get those votes up.
Look.
Hit me with something.
nobody is buying this. That it's the city.
I just poured my heart out over here.
That's
I wasn't trying to trick you.
Where's your heart?
Yeah, exactly. Just stamp it out.
Look.
I just told you everything.
Wait a minute. You're saying.
We get the bill on the evening of the 43rd day of 45 days. What am I supposed? I don't even have enough. I mean, it's inherently a fast system at that point.
The poor legislature, because they have no control, because the Democrats are controlling everything, and they wouldn't give us the bill until the last 2 days.
Democrats is a
You
broad
control
brush. I'm
everything.
saying you had a legislative strategy from an office that decided we're going to live or die by this sword. We're not going to work together. We're going to placate. We're going to slow bake. We're going to try and run the clock out. That was a decision made and a strategy implemented by an office.
But you control everything, you guys. You could have brought that bill out the second day, but you're waiting until there's 2 days left.
He was working on it in the Senate. There was a bill sponsor working on that bill. It wasn't that we were holding it back.
Did the Senate say...
The Senate only sent it to us that night.
There's a bad bill. And then it became draconian and horrendous.
No, it's still
and
not.
it went to the bill from hell.
I have a better bill that I would have liked to have passed, and I don't even think the bill that I felt was a compromise has borne any goodwill at all. There was actually there's actually a different bill that I would have liked to have passed, but this was the compromise bill that everybody's so mad about.
The first night, during the first session, I mean, there was a bad bill.
There was a bill.
And then you allegedly got pissed because the mayor had stormed out or whatever happened between you and the mayor.
17 or 18? When?
And no, I'm talking about when it passed the first time. And then we came back with another bill.
Yeah,
so
with
you
your
got
leadership as well.
So you got really angry, or you and the legislators.
There was no willingness to want to work together.
So then you kind of stuck it to the city.
It's just it takes two to tango. You have to get common ground. You have to be seeking it. If someone walks away, we still had a bill sponsor that was. I think we still had to compromise to a bill that made sure that Salt Lake City had Laura Fritz, who's their economic development director, is on the board. So is the member of the city council that represents that area, and it goes through their city planning desk.
There's 15 members.
But look, that actually deflects.
And 2 of them were in the city elected officials.
That's a good thing, because that deflects and allows some of those satellites around the state.
There were no satellites at that point.
But the potential's there, and that's so when the good information came before, like riots and just trying to stop the process. But when people started to bring up good arguments about environmental concerns, good ideas were being brought to the
15
forefront.
people.
A good thing was happening.
2 of them from the city, only 1 elected official from the city, and then you talk about the process. The process also said, yeah, it goes through regular planning, and said no. Originally, it skipped that in that first bill. That came in as a compromise on the second
and
one.
Why was the second bill better? Because we worked together. We found common ground. We worked to make things better. That's the key to public policy. I'm telling you, it's more fun to throw bombs and yell, but I'm telling you, the secret to good public policy is finding common ground. You're not going to find public policy exclusively in one political party platform or the other. A lot of these answers you just come together to make happen. How'd I do? Did I lose your votes? Are you mad at me? Or what are the messages saying? Hit them? Knock them out?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So.
All right.
But that's the world as I know it on a Friday night after a home invasion. Okay. So that's it. That's all I got.
Let me
and
ask
my ferocious dog is supposed to protect me, just likes you more than me.
Let me ask you this.
It's a ripoff.
How could a mayor of Salt Lake, whether it's me or somebody else, how can they stand up for their principles, especially when they believe, and their electorate really believe that they're getting totally screwed by the state? Because look, the state has all the power, right? I mean, you guys go in your caucuses, Republican and Republican, and you have a compromise between the extremists and your other Republicans, and you come out and say, okay, that's a compromise. So how do we keep our dignity? How do we keep and still work far enough on other things?
But I don't want to make your electorate upset. I think you've proven it. I think you've brought up very contentious issues. I think you've not backed down. I think you've been very animated about those, but there is a side of you that people that have worked with you know that you can seek common ground, or at least not letting perfect be the enemy of good. If someone's perfect cannot be achieved, but something better than what we have can be arrived at, you have a skill set for that. I think that's what a capital city needs with a state. If your capital city is a blue city and Democrat, state's red, we can't, as you described, you can't war with each other. You have to find ways to work together. I think the homeless situation in Operation Rio Grande is an example of that. We can run. That's a template. Let's see that happen more often. I think you've been outnumbered, surrounded, outvoted, and I think you have still been a change agent in the roles that you've held. So I think that's what a mayor is going to have to understand is the job of being
Let me ask
chief
you
executive
another
of our
question.
capital city.
As a guy who's still in play in a lot of areas, are you feeling the heat about affordable housing the way
Yes.
I am? I mean,
Absolutely.
are you feeling it like it's replacing clean air sometimes, like it
Well,
is
if we
all
don't-
over the state? Is it a big deal?
Oh, it's one of the scariest things we have happening right now, because if we don't, my daughter's halfway through college right now. I don't know when she gets her degree if she can afford to live here with the cost of housing going up the way it is. I'm telling you right now, if our greatest export as a state are our young people, our emerging workforce, because they go move to other states because they can't afford to live here, what a tragedy. We have got to do something about affordable housing. Some of that's supply and demand. We can't get a jurisdiction in the state to approve housing that's multifamily. I mean, and if you have a scarcity of housing, what happens to the price? Of course it's going to go up. Young people, they don't mind multifamily. It doesn't mean that you're poor and that you're going to have crime happening and your property values are going to go down. People actually like living in multifamily, developments and communities. It's not what some people my age, it's definitely your age, think it is. It's actually a preferred housing stock.
Okay,
but you can't
but our
get
cities
cities or
won't do
counties.
it.
No, they won't. They won't. They hate the word.
I have an idea.
They hate the term. It's the most
I
frustrating
have an
thing.
idea. We almost got in the last session 1.6 billion in new bonding on roads, or at least transportation,
Yep.
but mostly roads. Then 2 sessions before that, it was $1 billion that did go through on bonding on
Yeah.
roads.
Yeah, we did a lot of bonding when I was there for roads and transportation.
So
And transit as well as roads.
I want to suggest, and it will only be good if it's a Republican idea. And it comes, this isn't my idea, if Republicans have been telling me to do this. Let's take a couple of $1 billion, let's put it in affordable housing, let's use that as leverage to developers to get whatever deal we can to get a reasonable affordable housing, and then let's put that out there for cities and towns. You know what? You want to keep your half-acre lots? Fine. You don't want to build near mass transit? Fine. You don't want to build this way? You want to go that way? Fine. You don't touch the money,
Yeah.
It's sacred money, because we're going to be this next 35 or 40 years. You know what's going to happen. And whether they like it or not, those people are coming.
No, it's so true. So look,
Could we do that kind of bonding?
Yeah, absolutely. We have to combine. These are public-private partnerships. You have to look. We have it's called Low Income Housing Tax Credit Project. It's a federal program signed in 1986 by Ronald Reagan, passed by a Democrat Congress. But
The state has
works.
0 of that.
No, we have it, but it takes so long to get that implemented, and from applying for it to seeing the housing actually come online. Utah needs a more nimble system, but one that kind of leans on that strategy. But I will tell you, you need that. But what do we do about the local control in terms of counties and cities? How in the world?
Don't give them money.
You're not going to
Put the strings on
You
it.
know what? Because what happens is they go ahead and they want these developments that have state roads that connect either through our freeways and then after they do the density for like they did at Thanksgiving Point, they come to the state and say, hey, we need a wider freeway here. Well, get in line. You might have wanted to talk to the state before you built all that, but we need to coordinate that effort better. But I'm telling you, every regulation that says you can't develop or you can't do this creates a scarcity of housing, which only makes the cost go up. We have to find
We're
better
ready
ways
for
to do it.
$1 billion.
Look, and I'm telling you, Salt Lake City has some
Seriously?
phenomenal models. I mean, you're the way you guys are zoning. You've got zones in Salt Lake City that don't require any parking because it's adjacent or close to the stations. And guess what? They're full. They're not without people living there. So
Is that the
there's-
kind of thing the state and the city can work?
Absolutely.
We gotta deal with this.
Look, this is what people have to understand. Before this state was a state, when it was a territory, guess what? It was growing. 80 years ago, when they had to build reservoirs and get water in a desert state, the reservoirs and the water was over-engineered, too expensive for the population, not justified by the people and the taxpayers that lived at that time. But 70 to 90 years ago, those public servants knew that Utah's been growing since day one, and it's always going to grow. And 75% of our growth are our own families. So if you understand that this state's going to grow, and you can't just say, like a flat earther, I just don't like growth, like it's going to stop happening. It's not. If we want to lose an entire generation of an emerging workforce because they fundamentally can't live here because we've priced every young person out, what a terrible consequence to have to live through. So absolutely, know that this state continues to grow. It's one of the fastest growing in the country, as it's always been a high growth state. The people that were public servants planned for that a long time ago, literally built things that maybe didn't justify the population then, but they were forward thinking. We have to do the same thing. Absolutely.
That includes bonding and as an incentive to developers.
Yes.
And what about this? Because I gotta believe you're in your.
If you agree with me too much here, man, this is what time of night is it? We gotta hope the viewership is low.
They're drinking by now.
Okay, yeah. They've had a few. They're like, hey, who's the guy in the red shirt? He must be a Democrat.
27.5 cents a gallon of gasoline goes to tax. It's not enough to run our roads.
Yeah.
We go into the general fund and grab $660 million.
Auto-related sales tax, yes.
Why should that happen? Why shouldn't roads pay for themselves with a gas tax? Why should we? You won't subsidize state parks. They have to pay for themselves.
Because those roads, all those bonds we talked about we wouldn't have been able to build any of that. The gridlock that would have happened. So you look at a city like Boston and the Big Dig. They waited till they were beyond the event of congestion, tried to go under the water and get out of there. It straddled their transportation budgets in Massachusetts for decades.
Just increase the tax on the gallon, so it's a user tax. So if you're taking the UTA,
I'll tell you what we did do. What we did do, and I think this was important. That was a per cent per gallon, never move tax that was imposed in the late 90s. So when inflation, eats into it, 24 cents doesn't mean in the 2015 what it meant in 1997. So it was losing its buying power. At the same time, cars were driving further on a gallon of gas. That per cent per gallon is it's a bad way to collect, or as a user fee to collect for the roads. So we changed that in 15 to say that we'll make it more of a rate. But the thing is, gas prices haven't changed since 15, so it hasn't really moved it like we thought.
We're gonna need 17 lanes in each way on I-15 to deal with the population. Yeah. Roads are not we can't do it.
It has to be multimodal. It has to be the trains.
But we're not paying for it. What about?
No, we are committing.
What about no fare on UTA? You're a UTA guy.
I could live with that now. I mean, at first, for a while I could, because you know what they call that? They call that subsidy per rider. So if you don't have a fare box recovery, they say the subsidy goes up, and we're a red state, and that would work.
What about the subsidy we're giving to everybody who gets in a car? $660
exactly
million
right.
a year.
But people don't see it that way. But you're right. So when you see a road, when someone says, "I saw an empty bus," that bus was empty. Well, if you go on the road at a certain time of the day, it's not packed either.
Right.
Okay, so I would agree with you that unless it's a toll road, it's a subsidy for a road or it's a subsidy for transit. So I think the mindset has to change. If we had a day or a week where UTA, it's buses, it's light rail, it's bus rapid transit, it's carpool vans, all of it stopped. The kind of gridlock we would see along the Wasatch Front would be unspeakable. And then I think people, the public at large, would really know the role that mass transit plays in absorbing the market share of commuters.
All these kids.
Which, by the way, is absolutely essential.
They want to take transit.
Yeah.
So we need no fares. We also need that last mile.
And now
We also
technology's
need
working there too. So
frequency.
Uber and Lyft and those new scooters, there's just different
That's
ways
the
that last
last
mile's
mile.
getting
But the
extra cheap.
frequency we got to work on.
Sure.
So what I'm saying is, let's take some of that 660. We're not going to get that down to zero right away. You know, everybody would go crazy. But we could take 100 million or 150 million of that ongoing, get that to public transit. Because you know the side effect of all that? Not just the fairness. Right now, it's interesting because we're taxing the person who's responsible and is on public transport to pay for the person with an SUV. So that's bad. But it's also good for our air.
And you know what, Jim? It's always going to be a blend. It's not going to be everyone's going to go and everyone's going to use transit. It's not going to be that everyone's going to use roads. What's going to happen is we have that market share of commuters that's growing every day. In some urban areas, it'll be the bikes or the scooters. In some areas, it'll be the using the light rail or the commuter rail or bus rapid transit. But some people will still want to drive or have to drive. It's going to be all those. It's going to be multimodal. And I think that Utah, for being such a conservative state, we've really let out on this transportation vision where we've looked at we haven't picked our favorite mode. We've actually started, we got 130 miles of fixed rail that we built in a decade, which is a record in this country. We've got Stadler Rail that came from Switzerland. It's the largest rail car manufacturer in Europe. They're staring at our canyons where in Switzerland, they don't allow cars in Zermatt. There are no vehicles. There's no line of idling cars waiting to go up the canyon. They have avalanche cliffs and or sheds that if there's an avalanche, these cog trains can still go up to those canyons. You could get to a scenario where not a single car is seen inside or traveling in our canyons or in those areas, but yet the transportation ability to get to those areas will be high or better than they are today. All those things are heavy lifts and big jobs, but it takes a lot of people to do it.
You think then, just boiling this down, there's a route where, look, the city needs to continue the lawsuit simply because that's our bargaining chip with the state. You know, they got this passed, they got it done, they got their whatever, they're set to go, and there's no reason for them to go back to the bargaining table for the city. So, I mean, I just don't...
I think the Inland Port... Are you talking about the Inland Port?
Yeah, I was just going to recap.
Okay.
So, we got some stuff there. On affordable housing, it sounds like the state and the city, you're getting the message, and we need serious money, but we need to leverage it out. We need to get that done, and it's serious problems. And the third one on public transportation and air quality, that we need,
we can be like this on that. I think on affordable housing, or that's kind of a stigma when we say affordable housing. How about workforce housing, or just housing that people
can name it whatever you want.
The emerging workforce needs to be able to stay in our state and live here once they have their certificate or degree. The housing issue, we can come together on that and find some smart solutions. On transportation infrastructure, absolutely. And by the way, you haven't mentioned water, but we all turn on the faucet in the morning or take a shower. There's a lot going on to make sure that happens. That's an aging infrastructure, and we have to spend some time and stare at that. And also the conservation of the water. I think we're getting much smarter, and we put on those conservation or those water conservancy districts the pressure that they have to be more
what about
careful
pricing it by the tap, not by property tax?
I think you'll need a blend still. I think because it's a desert, you need, because I just don't think that, I think you'd pay $800 a month for your water if it was all borne on the water fee and not with your property tax. But I think that's a blend. But we can find an answer for that.
If we did?
The one thing that we need to find an answer for is you just have to love the Inland Port. It's going to be the best thing in the world.
We're gonna have problems.
Did we end that one good?
Okay, Greg, you gotta come on the bar crawl with us. We're going on a bar
Is that
crawl.
where
We
you're
can
going
solve
next?
the rest of these problems.
Who's the designated driver in here?
On a bar crawl.
It's a .05. You better make sure that
one
Diet
sip
Coke is.
Yeah, that Diet Coke is good.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for letting us in. It's really
you
nice.
tested my dog. My dog Ruby was supposed to be the protector of this home, and she just couldn't stop licking you and loving you. That was just a kind of a letdown, but.
All right, we're going to continue to have serious battles on Inland Port, but
Yes,
on a lot of these things, we need to sit down with the new governor, with the new legislative things, and have a fresh road and solve problems. Because you know what, as much as I'd like to think Salt Lake City can make clean air and make affordable housing and make homelessness go away and make the whole transportation thing work, we can't do it without a state that is in cooperatives.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you right now, the state can't stay in the same role it's in on the homelessness issue. It needs desperately leadership from the county and from Salt Lake County and from Salt Lake City, more so than what we're seeing today. That some of that's just a transition issue. I'm out. President Niederhauser's gone. Ben McAdams in Congress now. So you've seen some of the people that were working on those things gone. That institutional memory or knowledge isn't there. We desperately need that leadership in the county and the city
It's
level.
scary. If the state lost interest in that, it would be a disaster.
And you've got a new leadership team there, and they are entitled to their causes and their issues that they're tackling. And so I'm really worried about how this is going to move forward successfully. We need leaders to step forward in these spaces, and so there's a big job for the state, the city, and the county to really get a hold of this, because I'm not happy with where things are right now. We missed our statutory deadlines. We're behind schedule. I think things are progressing, but not with the urgency it once did. Okay. All right.
Thank
Drive
you.
safe.
I appreciate you, brother. And
Good luck, you
I'm
guys.
so dead wrong on
You
important.
guys remind me of
How could we get on things?
that documentary on Beto. I watched the what's it called, Run Beto or something.
Blair
Beto
Witch?
O'Rourke,
I don't know.
When he ran for Senate, I could watch it because I knew the ending he wasn't going to win, so I was okay. I could handle that show. But it was really fun watching that campaign. And they did these 24-hour deals. They did this.
His presidential race has done so well. I'm glad that you.
I think he had a better contrast with Ted Cruz than he has with the field of Democrats, so I don't know that it's the same deal. But it was a fun documentary. And you know what? They were doing what you're doing here, and there was a lot of excitement. So
It's great to have great young people. They just keep you going,
Yeah.
don't they?
yeah, keep
All
going.
right. See you, buddy.
Hey,
Take care.
good to see you.
Ciao.
Thanks for coming
Yep.
by.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Come and harass me anytime.
All
I'm
right, it's a
vacant
deal.
For all my friends.
Okay, bye-bye. You guys are taking
You want to put it on the floor before you get in? All right. My jacket's on there. You can step on it. Yeah, I see it.
Okay, awesome.
Is she climbing in the back?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was I'd like to hear
That
what
was interesting.
I don't want to characterize it. I'd like to hear what you have, how you would characterize it. Look, I'm going to tell you something. You may not agree with the establishment Republican power brokers, and I may not agree with them, but I'll tell you, they have all the power. And the 203,000 people in Salt Lake can't afford on a personal basis there's no upside to hostility. And so you need to be able to be really frank and have them on speed dial, which I think I have most of the gubernatorial candidates, so that you can actually get together and solve things. Where are we going now, Sarah?
We're going to a bar crawl.
Woo! Are any of you 21?
No.
Just barely.
Oh, okay.
We're not necessarily going in. We're talking to a number of bars.
Not necessarily you are not going in.
Well,
but
I
mean,
might.
I am.
I might go in. You guys may not.
Well, what time is it anyway?
11:20.
11:20. All right. So we used this place for a while, huh?
You were at Hughes' place for a little while.
All right, we're leaving Draper.
Oh,
Should we go see Howard Stevenson?
nope. I love Howard Stevenson.
I love Howard Stevenson.
I love him, and I miss him.
Except he's crazy on a lot of issues.
Yes, agreed.
But I like him as a guy.
And genius on other issues. I think he's super smart. He has a big brain. I think he's a problem solver. That's just me.
Okay.
We can disagree, Jim.
All right. I love the guy. I'd love to have him as a next door neighbor, but,
All right.
but maybe not so much on politics.
All right.
He was always out of his way, kind and nice. You know, sometimes those committee chairs didn't have to be nice to Democrats, and Howard always was supremely fair and honorable, and I appreciate that. As was Niederhouse, who lives around here.
So, can I tell a story about him?
Yeah.
Not Niederhauser, but Howard.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So-
Put the light on.
On Sarah.
We have more Chinese kids learning Chinese in Utah than in any other state. That's not per capita, that's actual students. And Howard Stevenson is the one that made that happen. I think that's amazing. That alone. So
That's impressive.
all. That's all I have.
Howard can't speak a word of Chinese. I know
Probably
right
not.
now.
Oh, hang on.
Woo!
Sorry, guys.
Have you been to the bar while
I'm
we
not
were
telling.
inside? Okay.
I'm not
Just
telling.
checking. All right.
No, of course not. I'm very responsible.
Look at they have Smiths down here in Draper. Wow. Did you know that?
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
We should do. That is funny.
I heard this is an up and coming city.
Hey.
Yeah, they are. There's something here in Draper. So we've only had 3 politicians on. Well, me 4, I guess. I don't. I'm a politician. What can I say? But
Yes, I'm all messed up.
Jenny,
Sorry.
Ben, and Hughes, and myself, and we've still got a lot more politicians.
They're
that we're
coming.
gonna see tonight, right? But
Do you guys typically meet
can get
in
I-15
the night,
if you
in
go
the dark of the
straight.
night? Is that
Thank
something
you.
you guys do?
And it will put you out on 114.
Is that common for politicians?
yeah, no, not really, not in Utah,
Thanks.
but we're enjoying it. So we're parallel with I-15 now. We're gonna go get on it. Huh?
We
That's what's
are.
happening. All right, we went over favorite restaurants. What else are we gonna do? Because I'm getting tired of talking.
Jim talked about his how he reads and what kind of books he reads. So who else? Who has some good books that they've read recently?
I
Or
definitely do.
Okay,
Ruth.
nice, Ruth.
Okay, so I have so many favorite books. Cold Sassy Tree.
Oh, I
is-
love that.
Yeah,
Sorry.
my mom. No, I'm not shushing you. I was gonna say she loves that one. It's like a coming of age story. It's super emotional. It talks a lot about like finding your spirituality. I just love that one. The Long Walk is amazing. It's about some people who escaped from Siberia. Was it a concentration camp
Yeah.
or? Okay, yeah, a concentration camp in Siberia, and they just have to like walk thousands of miles to get away.
That's a gulag under Stalin.
So
Or-
go left here.
I mean, what were they
I
escaping?
would assume.
I think that's right.
I don't know much about the Russian.
History.
Yeah.
So you like novels? You like?
I really like historical fiction is really where it's at for me. I love that.
So I realized a number of years ago, someone was looking at all the books on my shelf because I'm a voracious reader. My husband is too. All my kids are. But our bookshelf was horrible because it was all the weird books that you get at conventions and, weird tacky, the books you never read, because every good book I would give away and let someone else read it. And it was so bad. And as my kids were getting older, I thought, oh no, we can't do that. So I got very deliberate. I got rid of all the junky books and just filled our bookshelf with, I asked 20 people that I really respect what their best and favorite books are. And then Steve and I spent a lot of time going through what our favorite books are so that we could fill our bookshelves with books we wanted our kids to read and that we wanted to read. So every time, all of my kids come to me and say, what should I read next? And I just start pulling books off. What's the one, Ruth? My Family and Other Animals.
Okay.
That, if you want a funny book,
You will
that
literally
just
laugh out
makes
loud.
me cry. I mean, I was at a dentist's office while my kids were getting their teeth cleaned, and I'm out in the lobby they had to stop and say, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "This is the funniest book." So I love that. I love Confederacy of Dunces is so funny. Oh, and I love the Van Gogh one. What is that? I'm not good at remembering titles. Lust for Life. Oh, so good.
By Stone.
Huh?
By Irving Stone.
Yeah. Oh, so
I read
good.
that. That's good.
But then I've gotten into a lot of autobiographies, Jim. You said you do those. But the other weird thing for me is I'm not reading anymore. I'm listening. So I'm doing books on, essentially books
Audio.
on tape or audio. And I'm going through 1.5, 2 books a week. And I'm just inhaling them. I love it. And I'm doing a lot of walking, and I'm able to do, other work while I'm listening. But that's allowed me to keep reading even though I'm working long hours.
Awesome.
So,
We have a question. It says, "Are you going to return to both sides of the aisle?"
both sides.
Does he mean both sides?
Yeah,
Both sides of the aisle.
Yeah,
Sorry.
so I will. They kind of booted me, and I think it was a reasonable decision because I became an official candidate, and that wasn't fair to the other candidates. So if I get elected mayor, I don't know I don't know whether they would ask me back again. I'd like to do it again. I really enjoyed doing it, and I don't know, but it's a fun show, and radio is in my soul. I love radio. I really enjoy. It's such an intimate medium. I just am crazy about it. It was where I started my career, and I hope I can get back on the radio somewhere doing something, even if I'm the mayor. We have a podcast now. It's called Inside Salt Lake with Jim DeBacchus, and you can sign up for the podcast on Stitcher and Pitcher and Donner and Vixen and Apple and iTunes, and it's just on my website called www.tobacchus4mayor.com, and that's FOR, not, well, I won't say what it's not. It's Tobacchus4mayor. So thank you for the question. I miss it. I miss Natalie. I don't miss Hughes or Dan McKay. I think it's just a good, healthy exchange.
Good.
So let's talk to somebody else about their books.
I am a terrible example of a reader. I haven't really picked up books. I haven't finished a book in years. I like to listen to some books, but I like podcasts more.
So what's your favorite podcast right now?
Gary V Audio Experience is my favorite right now. He's also an entrepreneur, business owner, talks a lot about how to stop worrying about what other people think about what you're doing and just do what you want to do, which I think speaks really clearly to a lot of entrepreneurs. I think the best thing I've heard him say is that being an entrepreneur is what allows him to breathe. Without it, he couldn't breathe. And I feel that.
Breathe or?
Breathe.
I mean, I don't know how he met his wife, but breathe. Yes.
Breathe.
Inhale, exhale. I feel that in my soul. So he's amazing. He can be a lot, but
What's
he
it
has a
called
great
again?
message. Gary V.
Gary B.
V as in
Victor.
Oh, V.
Yes.
Gary V.
Yeah, he's great.
So you have somebody watching right now, Chuck. He says, "Go see Gail R. LOL."
Oh,
So
that's so funny. Let's go pound on her door.
You know what? She's the other way. We would go, but she lives in Alpine, and we're headed back to Salt Lake. So, Chuck, I'm so sorry. I would go, and I know where she lives.
Maybe next time.
I went to her house one time, and we dumped water on each other in an ice bucket challenge.
oh, fun.
So, here's what I like about Gail Rosito. She has passion. She believes what she believes and what she stands for. And she puts up with a lot of abuse. She brings her little cadre up to the Capitol. They sit at a certain place in the cafeteria. They're working all day. And she does it because she passionately believes it. The people that drive me crazy are the people who have no values. They just are up there for the money. And they'll work for any company or anybody that has enough money. And even if it's destructive and bad and wrong, and even if they know it, that's what they do. And so I give kudos to Gail Ruzicka and the people who are there participating in the legislative process because they have passion for what it is, even if it's wrong. I've seen her just tormented, and I've seen her say some of the most hateful, bitter, miserable things that I've ever heard a person say, but nonetheless, I think she kind of believes that. So, for whatever it's worth, that's my 2 cents.
Okay.
So, Christopher, you're going to talk about books?
Yeah, so I have a pretty wide variety of books I like. One I read not too long ago was The Circle, which was really interesting. It's basically talks about a future society and the role of technology in our lives. And I thought that one was particularly interesting because it's getting a bit dystopian in that regard, but I did think it brought up some interesting ideas about privacy in technology, and some issues on that front that I think are becoming increasingly relevant in today's world. So I like that type of books. I also like historical fiction. As I was saying to Ruth, there's a really good series, a whole number of series by Anne Rice, who has some really interesting historical fiction ones.
And vampires.
I was gonna say, I like her vampire one series, yeah.
Not quite.
Are they fiction or non-fiction, the vampire series?
I'm gonna go probably fiction, but could go either way.
I'm like, I don't know. Some people may debate you on that, Christopher.
Is she still writing? Does she come out with books?
Not sure, honestly.
Alright. That's cool. Alright.
So
One more voice.
One more voice. Okay. So, wow. I'm not quite sure how you did this.
It's a lot.
So I'm a little bit like Shayla. I don't have anything particular. I've been really bad about reading books.
There you go.
Oh, okay. I'd have to say one of my favorite books is The Giver, though, and that's one that I keep going back to quite a bit. So other than that, I'm sorry, you guys, I don't have any recommendations. But I am going to ask if you guys have questions for DeBacchus here. Please shout him out, and I will go ahead and ask him as we continue filming. Thanks.
Okay, I have a few questions.
Ooh, I can't see.
I don't have any questions for him. Okay, we're heading back up to Salt Lake. We are on the Mayor-a-Thon in hour number
15.
Hour number
and a half.
15. We have 9 left, and we'll be going right through the night. So let us keep you company.
I have a question for you, Jim, if nobody else has one.
Not right now.
Okay. So you started in radio. Who are some of the most memorable people that you worked with?
In radio.
In radio.
Ah.
So I got a job in the middle of the night working the graveyard shift. Some summer when I was really kind of young, and they let you have a radio, and that was it. And the job was, a wire ring notebook. You still have those. So it was National Blank Book. And my job was to take the notebook, put it on 2 hooks, and then push a foot pedal, and then guide the wire binding through.
Spiral.
And then cut it off at the end. So that's what I did, and I listened. Boston was about 100 miles, and I got a station called WBZ. It was 50,000 watts, and I listened to this guy all night. His name was Glick, Fred Glick, and I loved what he did. He didn't just talk about politics. He just talked about interesting stuff, and it kind of planted a seed, and that's kind of what I wanted to do. That's what I did. Talk radio back then was much less confrontational and much less. It was more interesting, and I like doing it. And the guy who gave me the job, shouldn't have given me the job.
Why did he?
I didn't have a job at all. I was living on somebody's couch. I had no income. I had just left BYU and arrived at the one talk radio station in Salt Lake at the time. And then I managed to go in and see him. And he saw me, actually, did an interview, and then I filled out an application. And out of this, he put it in a big file and stuck it in the middle. So if I knew that if I would have given him $1,000, he couldn't have picked out so in other words, I knew he wasn't going to hire me. So I went back the next day, and he said, "No, kid, I don't have anything." And I kept going back every day until he told Maggie Plum at the front desk, "Whatever this guy is, don't let him in." I mean, no is no, we're not doing it. So I noticed that he went to the Tracy Collins Bank across the street. For lunch.
Stalker.
So I waited for him to come to lunch, and I said, "Mr. Bush, I'm ready to work on an internship." And he said, "What the hell is that?" And I said, it means I'll work for free." And he said, "Okay." Because this was a real mom and pop station, but it was the first, and at that time, the only talk radio station. It was an AM station, if you can even believe it. So he said, "Look, Laura Ferguson is on. And believe it or not, there were no producers. So people called on the air, the light lit, and the talk show host said, 'Hi, you're on K-Talk,' directly and live onto the air." So Laura had an alluring voice, I guess. So this man was calling and saying, and Laura would go crazy and just go off on a rant, and that was they were kind of funny. And so then other people would call up, and she would take the call, and she'd say, "You're on K-Talk," and they would go, and the more she would do that, then the more people called in, and she would rant, and it became really funny and amusing. So he said, "All right, here's your job. She's on from 12 to 1. You come, all you do is answer the phone. And then that guy and those people will just do that in your ear and not on the air." So that was my job, but I had no life, I had no job, I had no money. And so instead of getting there at 12, I got there at 6 in the morning. Because really, I had nothing. So I started doing that for the other talk show people, and they kind of liked that. And after 6 months of doing that for free, they said, "Okay, well, we'll hire you." And Starley hired me, and because during the 6 months I'd kind of learned. I worked for the salespeople, I worked with everybody at the station, and I kind of learned how to do it and made myself indispensable enough that, at $1.80 an hour or whatever they were paying me, it was good. So that's why I say the best job lesson in life is get where you want to be, however you can get there. And forget about the pay on the first job. Get your passion and go there. Better to be making a little bit, especially at the beginning of your life, doing what you're passionate about, rather than making the money doing something you don't want to do. So, would you rather make $1 million putting widgets 7 nights a week for 10 hours a day, or doing something you really want to do for $10 an hour? I don't know. maybe you'd do the $1 million job.
I'm like, can I have both?
So, we're back to State Street. We're back in, I can feel it. We're back in Salt Lake.
Salt Lake City.
Back in hometown.
Yeah. That's it. Okay, enough of that speech.
I like it.
So I stayed there, by the way.
Where?
At that station. And eventually became a partner with the guy who hired me.
Wow.
And that was my very first big paycheck because we built a small chain of stations and sold them. And he was ready to retire, and that was that.
Awesome.
There's City Hall on the left. I wonder if we could go out in now.
There we go.
I doubt it.
I doubt it.
So we're a block away from Bar X. We're gonna go there first, and we're gonna meet our next co-host. We've been flying solo for a little while, and if you want to step across the street to Cedars of Lebanon, we can have that conversation as well.
Oh, okay, great.
But Steve will be there, and he can.
And who's Steve?
Add.
Tell us about Steve.
Steve Urquhart. He is the former Utah State Senator and is and a House member.
Yeah.
He was in Republican leadership in the House and is a man well respected many quarters and levels.
He knows a lot about bars.
He passed
is that not what
Is
we're
that-
talking about?
He passed the bars, right?
He passed 3 bars. All of them tonight. No, he took the California bar, the Washington bar, and the Utah bar, and he said, we're never moving again. So.
That's hard.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, so I'm kicking you guys out, and I'll figure out a way to meet up with you.
All right.
Okay.
Very good.
Okay?
Yep. I'm
So
good.
we definitely need a light for this.
It would not be a problem. I'm going to get meal.
Okay, Salt Lake is getting more and more known for its nightlife. Kind of check it out, see what's going on, and see who's here.
Okay.
Getting some adjustments done on backpack.
We're gonna get a little bit more lighting.
You got it?
You're good with the bag? Okay, so we can walk. Okay.
I think we're going by the beer bar first, and we'll go down to Bar X. And
Okay.
have a look at what's Jim, right? Yeah. Hey,
This can't go over. Is it 24-hour live stream?
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, no.
Say hello.
Don't advertise.
Like the bishop saying.
I'm good. How are you doing?
Come in, me. 5 anymore, is it?
It's not 3.5, no.
Oh, I thought we changed that.
You know our legislation. They don't change anything. They vote back on what we choose. Yeah, that's what we do.
You are a politician.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I know. Yeah, we vote back on what people think. That's how it is. Well, I wish you luck.
Good to see you. Do you live in the city?
I do.
I have to do whatever you say.
No, you do whatever the church says. Sorry. I'm not going to say that. But that's just cut that part
Great seeing you. See you. Bye. Good morning.
I feel it's very necessary. I appreciate you. I appreciate everything you do. I do. Just up around the corner. Absolutely. I had already planned on it, but seeing you in this beautiful suit makes it that much easier.
Now I know you just give me crap.
I'm a professional bullshitter, but you got my bubble.
You must be a lawyer.
Not at all.
Oh, no.
Not at all. That would be a terrible profession.
Yeah,
Want a
Will
beverage?
they let me in?
I'll buy you a beverage. Let's do it. I'll buy you a beverage.
Jim Tobacco. What do you need?
I'm going to be right back because I got to get my ID.
Alright.
Yeah, you need my ID.
Yeah, we have something for you to talk to.
Oh, okay. All right, great. They want me over for a drink there.
Okay, we can go grab your ID.
Okay, yeah.
Right here, Dorothy.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hey, good morning. Steve. How you doing? Hi, how are you? Good, how are you? Good. The ID, I need that.
I'll get it right now. You're having a conversation right here.
Ah, great. How are you?
Good, how are you?
So, okay, now we're a little
There we go.
officially
Now it's
shake and
official.
say, yeah. I think I was here the first time you opened.
Okay.
But you were a child back
So
then.
I was not here that night, no.
Do you know how sleazy this place was before?
So one of my favorite things is like getting people that come in that either haven't been here in like 20 years. There's like, you don't have both kinds of beer, you know, and they're looking at everything, and then other people that have been coming since it changed. And so it's kind of a lot of fun to hear all the stories and how different it used to be, but it's still the same.
Yeah, but since it opened, I mean, I was in here when it was the biggest dive bar in history, yeah. And then there was another redo, and it's just spectacular. Are you still owned by famous people?
Oh yeah.
Really?
Yeah, we have a couple famous people.
Can you drop names?
Yeah, of course. So we have Ty Burrell from Modern Family, as well as Nick Raimondo, part of the RSL, as well as the American national team. And they have some family and friends involved as well that own the bar. And it's, I don't know, wonderful people, awesome. It's a lot of fun. And they come in. They're more wonderful than you guys imagine.
Really?
Yeah.
So how long have you been working here?
So I've been here for about a year and a half. I was spending some time here before I started working here, but it's been kind of a dream of mine to get behind the stick and start making some craft coffee.
So what's the best thing the city could do, if anything, to help you? I mean, most of the issues are state, right? They're like the ABC stuff.
I mean, I think those are some of the biggest hurdles is kind of DABC and kind of dealing with that, kind of getting on track with other states. It feels like a little different sometimes, especially with all the tourists we get, having to go through and explain the laws every time and kind of help them with their disappointment. As far as what the city can do, honestly, I'm not sure. I don't know
what the city can do.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what the city can do. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So you have to close at 1 or 2?
We have to stop serving at 1 o'clock, and then we're open until 2 to give people some time to figure out where they're getting from the bar.
And have you been here? Sorry. Have you been here long enough to see a cultural change where people just don't drink and drive, they just come with Ubers and it just changes
It's been, especially since I've started, it's been insane how ubiquitous Uber and Lyft, and honestly, these scooters even getting here just to make sure people aren't using their cars or whatever, like it's actually been really, really interesting. That's not necessarily a worry that I have downtown.
Because, there used to be, you could wait hours at closing time to get a taxi because we just didn't have enough taxis.
Well, I'm sure even now I've had to call taxis for people that you use that. And it takes a hot minute, and you're never sure when they're going to get there.
But you don't want people using scooters, right? I mean,
No, I mean to get here, that is one thing. Early in the day, where it's like, make sure you leave your cards at home, kind of thing. But yeah, for sure, definitely not using it.
So where do your customers come from? Do they walk here? Are they in these new apartments? Where are they coming from?
So for the most part, they're coming up from kind of the avenues, I believe, and either kind of walking or taking Ubers down, or kind of central city and downtown as well to get here. I can't say for certain. There's a ton of new people every day I work, it feels like. But for the regulars, they're all pretty much with them on. It's very nice.
The beer bar, is that part of your operation, or are they a competitor?
Yeah, well, no, they are our better half. So we focus and specialize in cocktails and have kind of an extensive spirits collection, and they have so many beers, it blows my mind. So we kind of play off one another, and they send people that want cocktails, we send people that want beer.
So you're the same company then?
Same company. There's actually a hole in the wall in the back that you can go back and forth. They have amazing brats, burgers, and fries as well that you can get for bar snack.
You're talking to a guy who has an eating disorder. Bring up those brats.
Oh, I apologize.
And so you only need to be 18 to get in there, right?
So you need to be 21 for both. Oh, you got me. You got me.
All right, we're gonna go over there for a minute and come back. I got my ID, so
right on.
Can you tell if that's fake or not?
You know what? I have someone that can specialize.
Big sexy behind you can
in this
handle
sort of
that.
thing.
Hey there.
Let's see. All right, and then do you collect them? Or what? So my husband used to be in the bar business at a club called Club Access.
Yeah.
And they used to collect like this many a night of fake ones, and we used to just keep them.
So we have a handful that they rewarded for finding fake IDs. Obviously, you want to make sure you're always vigilant. But it's actually been every once in a while we'll actually get kind of like a sting coming in where we'll get a card afterwards like congratulations you passed. But I don't know if I've actually ever gotten a fake myself. I've only worked the door a few times. You need to talk to them, but
we need to ask Big Sexy.
Yeah, you need to
right
talk
over
to Big
there.
Sexy, but I don't know if we have a very big stack. It's been pretty.
You would know
pretty
if
good.
you had a.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah.
All right, what's your name?
Royce.
Royce. All right. Cool. All right. Well, I'll be back. Then. Yeah. Good morning.
Hey, thanks, Royce. Hey, appreciate it.
Oh.
Hi, how are you? Good seeing you. So, you guys are all the same or different?
Together, so there's a hallway between the two.
Oh, okay, great. Well, I think I'm going to get down to that patio and then work my way down. Is that okay? I have ID. You have to ask everybody, right?
Legally.
All right, we'll see you in a couple.
Sounds good.
Let's see if they're my parents drink. Right?
Hey, how are you, brother? You hanging in there?
I am.
When they cut out all everything else.
Are you really 21? Oh, I didn't think
Hi. How are you? You're coming to the bar? What?
How can you tell that's real?
So do you want to tell you it's real? Okay, so you actually have like.
So you could, most of them have holograms and a lot of them on the bottom you can tell. With the cellophane on them, some of them peel back and most of them on the right. If you hold it in the light, you can see if there's a purple tint in the back, it's usually fake.
Really? So, and you can pick that up?
Yeah.
And what if somebody gives you a fake one? Do you just keep it and...
Oh yeah, I take it, tell them, have a good night.
All right, sorry to ask.
Hi.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're okay.
Vote for me. We got Jim DeBacchus.
Jim DeBacchus, awesome name.
Can you vote for me?
Well, I got a couple questions for you.
Okay, fire away.
Okay, so number one. So we had a weed referendum law passed into, we had a bill passed into law, Prop 2. The problem was the legislature came in and just like, oh, just like Utah normal shit. Basically like, oh, we're gonna take this from 10 dispensaries or whatever, like public dispensaries that people can like start up and do like they did in California. Now they're state-run legislation, like state-run dispensaries. There's going to be 3 throughout the state. So if you're a patient with cataracts or cancer and you got to get your medication for weed, you got to drive 4 hours to go get your shit.
Are you the mayor?
I'm just wondering how you're gonna fix that shit, because like weed is basically legal in the whole rest of the world.
Do you remember when the Utah Senate was debating this? There was a crazy senator who went to Vegas and they said, "What the hell? Everybody ought to try it." That was that's my
that's you.
position.
Okay, good.
And Jimmy Kimmel told him not to inject the cannabis.
Don't inject it.
That's
Don't
right.
booty bump it. It's fine. Just smoke it or vape it.
That's right.
So what I want to know is like, so we got like 3 dispensaries now in the state because the state is an asshole and they're like, oh, we're gonna do it like a state liquor store for weed, basically. A state-run liquor store, but it's a state-run weed store. But what do you say to your patients up in northern Utah that have to drive down to Salt Lake 4 hours or something to get that? I know. So how do we fix that? That's the big
Because we
question.
are a religious state.
No, but I want to know from this mayor candidate how we fix that shit in this bullshit state we're in.
You go against the LDS religion
You
and
do.
stop us from being
I don't
a
ever vote for
religious
LDS
state.
because you got one vote.
I get it.
And it's either for LDS or it's not for LDS.
And it shouldn't be that way.
No, it shouldn't be that way.
It should be a people's state because
Yeah.
it is no religious state because I've been outside the
This is not a real
Utah
state. This is not a real state. I travel the world. This is not a real
know.
state.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
I would love to if I've been able to.
You are.
I don't think so.
If you're going to do anything, make it not be a religious state. And then what the fuck you're doing going around the bars, we'll make it that.
All right. We'll see you later. Thank you. Hi, I'm Jim.
Make it not a religious state.
No, I'm not. I'm a student. I'm a student.
That's terrific.
Let's check out Beer Bar. Let's check out Beer Bar.
Okay.
That's the question.
We're live with Jim DeBacchus. He's getting to know the people of the Salt Lake City. Thank you. Thank you.
Sorry. I'm telling you.
Fun time.
All right. We're headed to Beer Bar. All right. You're a popular man.
All right, now let's check out Beer Bar.
I vote for you because you're here.
Hey, that works.
Usually people go the other way. I was going to vote for you until I met you.
Shayla.
Oh yeah.
Shit.
Don't worry, I did.
Okay, good.
Just keep it. Just keep it out.
All right. You live in the city?
Yeah, sure does.
Vote for me. Tobacco's for mayor.
I already have.
All right.
Woo! That's hers. I'm gonna just. Okay, thanks. We're good. We're here at the beer bar. I don't know if you can hear me, but we're downtown. Come see us. Come say hello to Jim.
We're in the beer bar.
All right, so the one guy.
Hi, I'm Jim. How are you?
Vote Tobacco.
So the one guy asked you about medical cannabis. You met with Christine earlier, right?
Yeah. Great. Some of his facts were a little wrong, but he didn't seem
Yeah, so that'll be interesting to see how that one plays out.
That's perfect.
Exactly. I don't have any faith in the state. I don't think they're serious about doing it.
No, I think the people who were against it continue to be against it, even after they said they had figured out a compromise solution. I think you're going to see a lot of lawsuits, a lot of delays. I mean, which is how they intended it to go. I feel very bad for patients that this was stolen from them. And, you know, if product gets to the retail stores, which I doubt that will happen, it's going to be prohibitively expensive. So I think right now patients are getting access under the black market, and, you know, affordable product, good product, and I assume that's how it's going to stay. So that's the funny thing is the folks who wanted to trip it up, I think they created a very robust black market.
Steve, if you will take over for a minute.
Hey, we got Chris back.
Okay, great.
All right, I'll be right back.
Okay. So, Chris.
How are you? Closer, how are you?
Chris
Good to
and
be
Steve.
here. Oh, I guess I haven't introduced myself.
No, you haven't, not yet.
Just some guy
That's okay.
off the street.
It was kind of loud out there anyway. Not that as much.
I am Steve Urquhart, and I was in the Utah legislature for 16 years, and was in the Senate with Jim for part of that. And I was a Republican from St. George.
Love it.
So was thoroughly prepared to hate Jim when he came into the Senate. But really fell in love with him, enjoyed working with him, enjoyed working against him. You know, what I like is he'll say yes, he'll say no, and he'll tell you where he is on the issues, and that's someone I can work with rather than someone who will smile and lie. So
Good.
I really enjoyed working with him.
Good.
So we need to order. Should I order? Should someone order?
I'm like, what am I doing? Hello. Hi. And I'm just gonna keep eyes on you.
All right. So who did y'all meet with today? You met with some bikers. You met with Christine on cannabis.
We've been all over. We went to
Coffee and Rockstar. Get it.
Again, we are down at the beer bar, guys. If you have any interest in coming down, we are at the beer bar right now in Salt Lake.
But so anyways, yeah, Jim came in and we worked against each other on a lot of issues. But then we did start working together on a few billboards. I think we'll talk about that. We worked on LGBTQ rights. I think we will talk about that. Cannabis, we just talked about that half a second, but I'd like to talk about that some more. So yeah,
We've got a couple people that want to say hello on film. Say hi, guys. Get your moment. Get your 5 minutes of fame. I had to do you justice.
Who is he?
This is a former senator. Former senators.
He's going to be in a
slowly come down.
You can come slowly down. I think we're okay.
So, this is a fabulous place to celebrate July 24th. They have a fabulous party here at the beer bar out in the back. They open it up, and they have probably 20 restaurants and breweries that team up, and so they have a combination of high-end beer. It's a lot of fun.
So what beer did you get tonight, Steve?
We just got the 801.
801.
Pilsner, very appropriate.
All right, I like it. Okay. And just follow around. Is there a table?
Jim, the back is here. Walking in, not I'm just gonna say, I really appreciate how visible you are and how adamant you are about the values of progressives in Utah. I'm gonna say, like, I don't know too many of the details. I'm actually not a very intentionally like liberal or like progressive like political person. But I've sat and I've watched you advocate, and the fact that you're part of the LGBTQ community is also really important to me. So I just wanted to shake your hand. I just saw you.
Thank you so much. Do you live in Salt Lake?
I actually live in Sandy right now. I've lived in Salt Lake City for the past 10 years. I live in the Gravity District.
Great.
Rent was a little high, but there were a lot of cool businesses moving into the area.
Can I see your shirt? It looks cool.
This was an event that was held at Area 51, and the first 100 people got a free shirt.
Fantastic. Well,
why do you like it? Why do you like it?
You know, I don't know. It just seems cool to me.
The symmetry?
Yeah, no, it was totally, I didn't even read that printing. I like that.
Do you know who that is?
It's visual. No, I don't know the singer. Who is that?
That's Robert.
Oh, the
Carey.
Smiths?
That's Robert from the King.
You're from Depeche Mode? The Smiths. So, I mean, I've seen the Smiths and Depeche Mode, of course, and I mean...
Where did you see them?
In Salt Lake.
Where? Where in Salt Lake?
At Club Access.
Where was that?
That was where Gateway is now.
I think it's really cool when you can talk to people that have a vision of the map of old Salt Lake, or like Salt Lake in the 90s or the 80s or anything more.
So this would have probably been, the Smiths they were considerably earlier than Depeche Mode.
Yeah, so way before I was born.
Yeah, before you were born probably. Yeah, but they're still popular. I mean, I love their work. And the Thompson twins, you ever heard of them?
Okay, cool.
That sounds familiar.
They were kind of Smithians. Anyway, it's terrific. What do you do for a living?
I'm actually a direct support professional for a nonprofit, and I work directly with individuals with disabilities. So intellectual disabilities, honestly, I like to say differently able folk, but this nonprofit has been around since 1989. So right at the edge of which I don't think many people in our community and society and American society and big world understand. So people with disabilities, intellectual, developmental, cerebral palsy, Down syndrome, traumatic brain injury, they no longer are holed up in like abusive institutions. Now they're actually serviced by like community-based nonprofits.
You're doing God's work, however you interpret that.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm pantheist, but yeah, like our nonprofit's actually going to do a fundraiser in September towards the end, a food truck fundraiser, and we're going to have some of our actual like consumers, clientele come and be a part. So
we'll invite me.
I absolutely will. Great meeting you.
I'm Jim.
Hey,
how are you?
Good. So I watched the Westminster. I don't know if it was earlier this week or not, but I was just sad you didn't get to finish the story with the dogs.
great.
Oh my goodness.
Didn't think someone would actually ask you about that.
Where did I leave off?
So you had just gotten to the lady's house, and then you realized that it wasn't your dog, and then they cut you off.
So I mean, right there, what happened is, I was on my way to a debate. My dog is missing, my brand new black Chihuahua, and I'm kind of frantic. So I'm looking around everywhere I go for 5 or 6 days. So as I'm going to the debate, I see my dog. And it's on 9th East around 13th South, and there's houses on the west side that have big alleys running behind them.
Right.
So I saw the dog, and remember, I've only had it for a week, so I start running, and the dog starts running, and had a green collar, just like, and I'm running, I'm really kind of hooked up, and I've been looking, and the dog turns up, and I turn, and trash, and we're going, and I took the car, and I kind of run it up half on the curb, and left it running, and I'm chasing the dog. So finally I saw the dog, and it was doing its duty on a lady's lawn.
Which is always like,
And so I'm there, and I'm doing the dog, and I've been chasing it, and the dog is doing its duty, and the lady comes out and screams, "Get your dog off my thing!" And I notice, and I look at the dog, and it has a lot of white spots, and it's not my dog. So I said, what went through my mind is, what should I do? Should I tell the lady it's not my dog? Because it's clearly my dog, but it's not my dog. So she said, "I know who you are. You're running for mayor." And I'm like, "Yeah, but this isn't what it looks like." She said, "What are you talking about?" And I said, "Okay, look, I will clean this up. Do you have something? I don't have anything to clean up the dog." So she says, "I'll clean it up." And then I didn't know what to do, and I didn't grab the dog. I just walked off, and she said, "I know you want your dog." Well, it was awful. So that's what happened.
A little awkward. Can I ask like a serious question? Okay. So I'm an economics major up at the U, and then so my question is, how do you plan to tackle environmental sustainability, specifically with air quality in Salt Lake City, while also continuing to grow?
So I don't think they're mutually exclusive, but it's a great question. And the truth is,
Jim, repeat the question, just because I don't know if we can hear it.
Okay.
So
go ahead and repeat the question a little louder.
So the question was, how do you plan on tackling environmental sustainability along with Salt Lake's growing economy and getting those to work together?
So I don't think they're mutually exclusive.
Right.
And we're just 204,000 people in the city. And the real key to taking care of our air quality is a mayor who can sit down with the governor and the legislature, because that's where the money is and that's where the regulations are. And so the money is going to have to come out of the legislature.
Right.
And so the specific money to clean up will come that way. And I think economically, we can. The future is with those. I think it pencils out, is what I'm saying. I don't think that's coal doesn't make sense on economic terms or in air terms, and that's simplistic because we don't really have coal mines or burning it. But I think it's the same way as far as sustainability. I don't think we have to pick between them.
So you think that we could just kind of focus on, say, like improving solar subsidies and stuff, but you're thinking that we have to work. We're not strong enough as a city to do that. We need the help from the state.
The state just canceled $22 million a year in solar subsidies 2 years ago. We had a great program, and they said, no, we're ending that, and that's what they did. So that kind of money isn't going to come from the city. So we need the kind of relationship with the state. We just came back, we pounded on Greg Hughes' door in Sandy.
I'm sorry.
Just like 15 minutes ago, Greg, if you're listening.
Hey, there's a constituent right there.
I'm from Rose Park.
Oh, Oh, terrific. So this is the neighborhood where it's the crosshair on so much pollution.
Yeah, well, and that's, I mean, I have the factory right behind, or the refinery right behind my house. As I'm doing my daily jog, I see the smoke coming out. And so as a citizen, it's like, you know, am I breathing healthy air?
And you can feel it.
Yeah.
I mean, that has to be, you know, one of the candidates, a great guy, but he's saying he's going to close the refinery, which...
Garbage, right?
Yeah, but it's not going to happen, you know.
No.
So I can say kind of weird stuff that can happen too. It doesn't solve the problem.
When I watched the debate, that's one thing I did like about you is you really did seem to be realistic about your approach, whereas some of the other candidates were. It felt like a little promising too much, and I'm like, hey, you know how you talk. It's like you can't promise this stuff. You know what I mean? And that's kind of what they were doing. So, and that I did like when I was watching.
So how soon before you graduate?
Probably around a year. So I work full time with Smiths right now. I'm an e-commerce supervisor. So between balancing the full-time job and going to school, you know, it's a lot.
That's becoming a big deal, isn't it?
Yeah,
e-commerce at Smiths.
Yeah, it really is. So I mean, e-commerce is a growing industry.
Is it true you'll deliver for $4?
Sometimes, yeah. It's kind of, they split it. It's done through a third party. Instacart does the delivery, whereas my department does like the actual curbside pickup.
So it's growing in popularity.
Yeah, oh yeah, it's growing big time.
So how does it work? I can go online, pick all my groceries, say send, and somebody will bring the bags of groceries to my...
Yeah, that's exactly how it works. Yeah, you just order online, you reserve a time, you come pick up.
Oh, I pick it up.
Yeah. So that's, yeah. And we do have delivery that's done through a third party, but the pickup service, which I run.
And are they equally popular?
Yeah, so it's about 50-50. Some people like the curbside pickup because the quality tends to be a little better and it's a little cheaper than the delivery. But, you know, delivery is super convenient, so who's going to be against that, right?
So you got a great future.
Oh, well, thank you.
The thing I wish I would have studied in college more is like economics.
It's important.
Bugger right in the pussy.
Well, hey, thank you so much for your time. Yeah, really nice to meet you too. Have a good one.
All right, we'll do that. All right, well.
So do you want to go talk about the Cedars of Lebanon?
Yeah, why don't we...
Have you seen the artwork in the alley right across the street? Let's check that out. It's really cool.
Everybody know this is our co-host, Steve Urquhart.
We introduce ourselves.
I can't take this out.
No. I don't think that's a good thing, Jim. Down the hatch. Down the hatch. There it goes. Woo! 801 right there. Thanks, guys.
Mayor? Who said mayor?
Right here.
Who's running for mayor? There he is. Hey, good morning.
How are you?
Will you vote for me?
Well, shit, yeah. Hey, what do you got running for you?
All right.
Nice to meet you, man.
Got a lot of good stuff. Do you listen?
I do.
Okay, I gotta listen to everything you say then, because I want to do that.
Okay.
All right, great. Well, thank you. Appreciate it.
It's nice to meet you, man.
Thank you. It's really great to meet you.
Tobacco for mayor, guys.
Political guys?
We try, you know.
Intermediate.
What do you got the advantages? What's different for you?
You're 21?
I'm 23.
No, you're 21.
I'm 22, actually.
What would be your pitch to two 21-year-olds?
Hey, good morning. How you doing?
Say good morning.
Mr. Mayor!
Shaking a lot of hands, dude. I'm telling you, that's rule number one.
Shaking hands.
Politics, shake a lot of hands.
When the medical marijuana thing was being debated in Utah, there was one crazy senator who went to Las Vegas and he said, you know what, this is crazy. There isn't one senator who's even tried this stuff. That was me.
Really?
Yeah, that's why you should vote
It
for
was.
How was it?
You know, it didn't do much. I tried one gummy bear, man. You know, not that much happened.
Didn't do a lot.
No.
You tried the edibles, huh?
Yes.
Yeah.
Logan Jerry.
The only senator who was brave enough, guys.
No,
Like,
exactly. You actually give a shit.
So,
hey, what's your full name?
Jim DeBacchus.
Hey, vote Jim DeBacchus.
Salt Lake Mayor.
Salt Lake Mayor.
Thank
What are
you.
your thoughts on the alcohol, like the laws and stuff, like with the drunk driving, like
the 0.5%?
Yeah. What do you think about
So during the debate in the lofty Senate, I testified. And what I didn't tell him at that 9 o'clock testimony meeting, that my entire testimony was at 0.5% until after I finished. And I said, okay, how did you like my testimony? And they went, what are you talking about? And I said, I've been at 0.5% this whole thing, and you guys didn't even know. It's crazy to make that a DUI. So that was all right, DeBacchus,
Hey, you know
vote
what?
for me.
Hey, that right there. Let me tell you.
I sealed it out, huh?
Hey, I mean, honestly,
He's a champion of the young adults.
Look at this guy.
Hey, you know what's up. He knows.
Okay, guys, thank
All right,
you.
see you later.
I like the lights. You have a good night.
Guys, good night. Hey, good morning. How you doing?
Sorry.
You having a good time?
Oh yeah, man. How about yourself?
So far, just having a great time.
Oh yeah?
Yeah. Where do you live in Salt Lake?
Oh yeah, man. I'm born and raised.
I have to do whatever you say now.
Oh yeah. I appreciate it, man. Looking forward.
The ballots are in the mail. Vote for me.
Oh yeah, I'll be there, man. Hey, Jim DeBacchus, man, the best.
Cool. Look at all these beautiful young ladies. Hi, I'm Jim DeBacchus. I'm running for mayor.
Hi.
Think about voting for me, Jim DeBacchus. How are you? Hi, Jim DeBacchus. I'm running for mayor. Jim DeBacchus. Do you live in the city?
No, I'm from Idaho.
Will you move?
Probably not.
Hi. How are you? You're from Idaho as well?
I am.
Gosh, hi. Idaho?
Utah.
Oh, good. From Idaho. So nice. From Salt Lake?
No, Logan, Utah.
Will you move to Salt Lake? Because I'm running for mayor and I need the votes.
No, we're just playing.
Are you Aggies?
How do you feel about sex trafficking?
I'm against it.
That's a good answer. It's not a swear.
Really? You heard anybody say that? I'm against sex trafficking.
Sex trafficking is terrible.
Yeah. Of course I'm against it.
What about the .05?
So when I was a senator, I'm running for mayor now. So when I was a senator, I was so angry, I testified before the committee. And when I finished, I said, how do you guys, usually you don't evaluate performances, but how did you think I did? And they said, well, you know, you were your usual self. And I said, because I testified at 0.5%. I had 2.5 mimosas before I testified. And I was perfectly fine. They didn't see anything wrong with me. So I think it's crazy.
That's not solidifying that question at all.
I see. Well, that's good. I think it's, I don't like it. I don't think people are drunk at 0.5.
.05 is insane to, as a bartender, like, to gauge, you know? Like,
Yeah, how did you do it?
We've been able to do .08 and learn it,
Right.
but the state in itself is absolutely insane with their
I agree with you.
liquor laws. But .05, like, bartenders don't even have a gauge for this type of stuff. Like, we don't even know how to gauge that. Like, if somebody has a beer and a fucking meal, like, how are we supposed to gauge that?
I agree. It's a bad thing. 0.5.
He agrees.
It's a bad thing. Yeah.
You agree?
See you later. This way, right?
Take a flag, Jim.
Well, that's fun.
That's fun.
That's true. That's true. Hey, you guys, you want the flag.
Oh yeah, thank you. Stay safe.
Hi.
Hello.
Okay. This was one of my favorite restaurants. Stevie, you eaten here, right?
I have, yeah.
It's just a terrific restaurant. Called Cedars of Lebanon. And it's healthy food too.
Are we sure?
Yeah, well, no, it's
I'm
closed
like, oh,
now. And
went
let
away.
me tell you one of the reasons that it's closed. There was a great Middle Eastern, because it's a Middle Eastern restaurant, appeal, and a cultural part of this restaurant was a lot of the people who came here were Middle Eastern. And they like to go back to this part of the restaurant and smoke hookah. Hookah's that.
Nope.
Maybe you don't like it.
Can't see it.
Maybe you don't like hookahs, maybe you do. It doesn't really matter. It's a cultural thing, and a lot of Middle Easterners like to come. So they would come to this restaurant, they would smoke a hookah. So the state changed the law on hookahs and said no hookahs except in alcoholic licensed places. So that was a problem for them. They started losing business right away, and they didn't have that kind of liquor license. So they went and said, look, across the street there are places that have that license, so we want to go get the license, not particularly to serve alcohol, but so we can have the hookah. So the state guy came and he measured with an official measuring thing. Let me get this for you. He measured from that front door down to that church down there. Let's walk down there. There's a historic church on the corner.
Great church with a great organ, by the way.
And greatly restored.
Yeah.
Yep.
Fabulous organ.
So it turns out it's 250 feet. You know the new law?
Yeah, 250.
It's 250 feet. Well, it's 7 feet short of qualifying. So because of that church, they said that you cannot get the alcohol license, and therefore you can't do hookah in that restaurant.
Do you know, did that church even care?
Yes, I know that.
Because even if they didn't care, in the past they used to say, we don't care, go ahead and give them a waiver. The new law, the disaster law that was passed in 2017, there are no waivers.
Zero. So the first thing they did, Rafi and his fabulous wife went to this church and they said, okay, are you guys okay with that? And they say, well, great, we want to come by and actually, have a drink. And as Steve said, even though there it is across the street, and even though this would just be a restaurant license, and even though that's a real restaurant, because that church is there and it's 7 feet short, we're not giving you that license.
So they would have been grandfathered in.
They would have been grandfathered in. Exactly. But there, no license, no hookah, out of business, gone. Maybe there was some other reasons, but there it is. They are gone. And that's one of the big issues actually in the state, Steve, that we're not Brigham City. We got a convention center. We have an entertainment center. And we can't, these laws may work in certain places in the state, but as we go higher and higher, these things become weird to try to enforce.
Okay, so you're no longer in the state legislature, you're running for mayor of Salt Lake City. Someone at Bar X asked you, there was a lot going on, what as mayor could you do?
I think there's a great answer to that question, because the city can't do anything. The legislature makes all the DABC rules. So I think one of the things that needs to happen is we need to go to the people that decide the liquor laws. And I don't mean any disrespect by saying this. And the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is quite, I think they're frank in saying this is one of the areas we do get involved. So I think we need to have discussions about, look, we need to make this change. We need to give local municipalities more autonomy, not on DUIs, not on who can sell things, not on other things, but on these zoning. And
make it in cities of the first class, which there happens to be one in the state.
Right, which is Salt Lake.
Yeah.
And we say, look, in these areas, these cities have flexibility. And that's the only way. That, on an honest, real answer, that's the only way it's going to change. And so, I found, frankly, when you come and you bring people in and you say, look, this is a situation, because this is one of 10 that I know about that where it wouldn't make sense to real normal people that, look, that doesn't make sense.
So how do the constituents help that? Like, help convince the legislature to give the autonomy to the cities?
By voting for me for mayor.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to say. If I can answer that one, I mean, you need someone to carry the torch. And so, everything was a bit convoluted in the bar, but what I was saying when you were going to the little future mayor's room, when you came into the Senate, I was completely prepared to dislike you. I don't know if you remember this, but
I think you said hate.
We had met once before you came into the Senate. I forget what the issue was, but you weren't in the Senate, and there was some issues, very controversial. And so I'm like, hey, some people want to come out and talk to you outside. Do you want to talk to them? And I'm like, yeah. And someone said, it's Jim DeBacchus. I don't care who it is. So you like shoved a microphone in front of my face, and you're like, why do you hate babies? Why do you club seals? Why do you? Anyway, so that was my one experience. But what I learned is he's great to make deals with, good to talk with, and so what Salt Lake City needs is they need someone who can engage with legislators, who can sit down and say, look, I have a good idea. Here's something that works, and here's something that is good for the tourists who come to Salt Lake City. A lot of them do end up at Temple Square. I mean, again, the Methodist Church, I didn't know the answer, but I don't think they care at all whether hookah is smoked here. But they were deprived of the option of saying, we don't care. I mean, a bunch of legislators from Utah County and Davis County made that decision for them and for Salt Lake. So yeah, we need someone who can negotiate good deals with the legislature.
And I mean, and you've got to be able to diagnose where the real situation is. The fact is, you could talk to great legislators like Jerry Stevenson and a lot of other people that are involved, but the truth is, like you learned, Steve passed the very famous breakthrough non-discrimination. You got to be able to analyze, look, where's the real roadblock in getting this done, because you're wasting your time with people that ultimately don't make that final decision. And I don't mean it that way. What I mean is, if the church in this situation is the one who makes the ultimate choice, then you need to be talking to them.
Yeah. Well, you have to be able to sit down and have the conversations. I mean, let me tell you part of the what is bad about this bill potentially. So, boom, we just went by 3 businesses, booming businesses.
Hi,
they
Chris.
add a lot to the city. If they were to have some sort of little paperwork glitch and they didn't pay the check, whatever it was, and their license were to lapse, well, they could go to the DABC and say, hey, screwed up on that, we had a new account and whatever it is, here's the check. The ABC would say, okay, thank you, but we have to treat this as a new application. You no longer qualify. They're out of business. And so, I mean, this is really, they have no squabble.
Right.
This great Methodist church, but you really do have to go there some Sunday. when they're doing an organ recital. It is amazing. They have no beef with these bars. These bars have no beef with them. I mean, it's creating conflict where none really should exist.
Yeah, I agree.
So I want to show you an alleyway.
Okay,
if we have
yeah,
a
let's
second.
go.
This is cool. So,
God, it's so fun, you know. I love those. I love the voters, the 20 to 30 voters. I mean, they are just. They got. Okay, what do you think about this? Yes or no? What do you think about this? Yes or no? Okay, you're the person.
Let's check this out. Yeah, so you know, I have kids that age. I work with you with a lot of people that age. I don't understand them at all. But I have this odd faith in them that they will show us the way. I really like how they think. But yeah, check this out. So, you know, here's Vice, a skateboard place, and they probably had something to do with this. And it just goes all the way back. I love it.
Wow. We're on our way.
So it's kind of cool stuff.
Yeah.
I saw y'all were looking at art this morning. Wanted to show you this. Groovy, right?
Very cool. I didn't know this was back here. Steve, thank you.
Yeah. I know my city.
Wow. So this is all commercial. It looks like a one-time building.
Well, I think you have residential,
Up there.
Up above. But yeah, this is skateboard apparel shop right up here.
How you doing?
Yeah, that's a shame to lose Cedars of Lebanon. Real shame. Shouldn't have happened.
And there's a whole number of it. And the story you told about the person whose license lapsed, that's a true story too.
Yeah.
All right, should we head out to the next?
It's the next venue.
Yeah, we're going to see Richie, right? Richie Steadmen.
Yeah. Go see Steadmen. All right.
All right, let's roll.
Probably could use a water. Oh, here we are. I'm like. All right.
What if it's the wrong
Hey, I'll take a rock star. Okay.
I got this. Do you want to take that?
Hey, how you doing?
Good, how are you? Good.
You okay?
That was just a lot of fun.
Tex, do you not have this list?
I do, but there's no address on it, is there?
Will you, Ruth, quickly get this address?
I can take it.
Oh, thank you. All right. There we go.
Okay, great. Yeah, I'll close it. Yeah, go ahead the other side there. All right, so what we're doing now is getting everybody back in. After Steve, we've got one more person in the back.
Okay.
Are you getting super close and close?
So what we're doing now is we're getting everybody moved along, and we will be on our way.
Richie.
We're
gonna go see Richie.
Do you need me to scoot up?
Close that door.
All right, Jim. So I want to talk about. Oh, sorry. Were you talking in the middle of something?
Nope.
Okay, so a couple things I want to talk to you about tonight at some point. I want to talk billboards. I want to talk non-discrimination. I want to talk LGBTQ rights. So I want to talk billboard rights on 6 South. I want to go down there by the big monstrosity.
Is that story? Channel 2 talked to me about billboards, and I don't know if the story is aired or not.
Yeah, they ran something last night. It was pretty good. On South Temple, I'd like to talk about LGBTQ rights and the about Holocaust meeting we had.
I'm not making that up. I do remember that. That did come up, right?
Any story I tell, I augment 10% because I care, right? I mean, if you're gonna tell a story, put your back into it. I don't augment that story at all. And still, as I'm saying it, I'm going, am I making this up? Stay tuned.
I'm like, I want to know the story.
It's unbelievable. It's crazy. And so what? Oh, do you know? You probably don't know because you've been doing this all day. That the Trump administration today said that it would not approve the Medicaid waiver that the legislature received
for Utah
when it undid Prop 3.
It seems to me that we included in the legislation that if the Fed said no, full Medicaid expansion kicks in.
Right. And
now,
so
they're not going to go back on that, are they?
Well, who knows what they're going to do? But I doubt it.
I'll bet they do.
But here's the thing: CMS hasn't said it yet.
Well, who's CMS?
Well, they're the ones who run it, and they officially have to say it.
You're talking about that's the federal government agency.
Yeah.
But
the
they're going to say it. They fall in the line with the administration.
Of course, they're part of the administration. But yeah, the administration suggested said they're not going to grant it. Now they couldn't. I mean, I teach this up at the U. I teach healthcare policy, and this is what I was saying in February. It's just such a ludicrous ask because the rules on waivers are
so
that.
Let's go back up to 50,000 feet. So what you're talking about is Obamacare, right?
Yeah.
And so Utah had the choice to take Medicaid expansion. We're talking about this particular thing.
Right.
This has nothing to do with the Attorney General's seat.
Right. This is just Medicaid expansion. So the way it works. like you when you came in the Senate is you could say yes and you could say no. You would say where you were, why you were there. Now, usually you were in the wrong spot. But I can deal with someone that gets a real on something that you know is just plainly illegal. So having done that, will they come in and go back on their word? Well, I sure wouldn't put it past them.
Hey Richie, how are you? Good to see you. Morning. How many people are in this?
Oh, we have a whole contingent.
So this is the place I watched you restore on
Online, yeah.
Facebook, right?
Yeah.
Cool. Look forward to seeing it.
Well, come on back, you guys. No one brought breakfast.
We've got some stuff.
I'm geez.
Had I known, Richie.
What's that?
But had I known.
Well,
Sorry.
Okay, so
Says volume is very low.
yeah.
where were we just at?
varies.
The bar crawl.
Okay. Riding the bike bar crawl, or is that something different?
No, that's a different thing. We just went to a couple of great bars.
RX and beer bar.
Oh, nice. Well, had I known, I would have put out a few more chairs.
Go ahead.
Come on in.
You got your own studio.
I don't
here.
mess around.
Sweet. Wow.
Come on in.
This is
I'll turn the air
terrific.
conditioning on. I didn't know.
This is terrific.
Hey, can we get an introduction?
Of course.
Okay.
From him or from me? I'm presuming me.
I would say you.
I'm Richie Steadmen. Richie T is what I go by professionally. I host a radio show on Sirius XM, and then I also do a bunch of podcasting and DJ weddings and stuff. So
Cool.
Famous. You know, let's get in
Yeah,
cheers so
you
we
tell
can
me.
get a one shot here.
Okay,
And
all
Steve,
right.
The three of us
Like,
will
I need-
get
Yep, I need to be in the corner so I
in
can.
the spot here.
okay, all right. I'll go here. Yeah, here. Where do
No, you gotta
Yeah, like
get in
that.
nice and
All right.
cozy,
All right.
if you wouldn't mind.
I hope the Facebook Live audience is loving the musical chairs.
Like,
Yeah, we're trying not to overdo how
I'm
dramatic. So tonight we went to Draper and pounded on Speaker Hughes' door.
Oh yeah.
And he finally let us in after he let the dogs out on
Sure,
us. So
sure.
it's nice to be here among friends.
His last one, he pounded on my door at 4 a.m.
Oh yeah.
And I was sound asleep. I told him, you don't bang on Republicans' doors
No.
at 4 a.m. We
You
have
do
guns,
not.
man.
You know, Democrats would be okay.
Yeah, they throw food at you or something. You know?
Here, take money and just please. It's fine.
Ooh. So catch us up to date. What you've been doing, and you had a big career and life change.
Sure. About 4 months ago, switched jobs. I'd been working for Radio from Hell, a huge radio station and morning show.
For how long were you there?
Almost 15 years.
Wow.
So a
Started
huge
when
change.
you were-
But BYU, that's Brigham Young University. I'm sure everyone knows that. But came to me with a briefcase full of tithing money and said,
Sweet.
"We would love it if you guys would come or if you rather would come and work for me here." And I said, all right, I'm willing to talk about that. And it ended up being a pretty good fit. I'm on a show now called The Lisa Show, which is like if you put Pinterest on the radio, that's what it is. It's like 7 tips on how to get better, healthier skin, and then the next segment would be like 5 ways you can be a better parent or a better
I was going to say, your
politician
skin
or-
looks really
Well,
good.
I mean, I woke up like this.
So is it syndicated, or how does it work?
Yeah, it's syndicated. It's available, obviously, anywhere because of the internet, but it's on Sirius XM, like I said.
Sirius is big business. I mean, that's a big deal to get on Sirius XM. Right?
It's pretty fun. It's pretty fun.
And you can do that 24 hours a day, or you're one. What channel are you on?
So then a couple things, right? We're on in the morning from 6 to 10 a.m., so just the same shift as I was before.
Mountain time.
Mountain time, so 8 a.m. Eastern, 5 a.m. Pacific. And then it replays all the time and does stuff on the weekend, and people can listen to it literally whenever they want. So it's pretty fun.
Are those? Do you know those people?
Yeah,
Are those your
like,
neighbors? Or
We've got peeping Toms in there.
All right.
Are they wanting to come
they
in?
Might, they might want to get in, and they're.
Oh.
All right.
I'm like, they're not allowed. Okay.
Here we go.
Yep, come on
Maybe
in.
not.
They may
Let's-
have to push. Sometimes it gets a little. Come on in. If you're coming. Oh yeah, no, come in. Oh, you're
Come
fine.
on in.
So, you guys go ahead and just go ahead and sit down, and no, that's for the camera.
Oh, it's okay. This is actually.
Okay, you want to sit down there?
I'm gonna.
All right.
Nope.
Just act naturally, Steve.
All right. Yeah, there we go.
There we go.
So look, we're not
Live
that.
TV.
I don't like that.
Yeah, we're not that formal, as you may have noticed. So, was it shocking to go from Radio from Hell to the BYU culture? Or is it difficult?
You know, I thought it would be, right? I thought it would be like, and don't get me wrong, it's really different, but it's not. It wasn't shocking. So much of it is just like, still you have to be interesting. You have to, talk about the things that people are talking about. You have to, all that kind of stuff. So, it's different. Rather than starting with like just a big like cursing or yelling session that we would do at Radio from Hell.
well, Bill Allred, he is a bishop, isn't he?
Yeah. Son of a bishop, actually, I think.
And you don't do the boner of the day.
Yeah, no, we don't do any of that stuff. But we do start with a prayer. I thought that was kind of interesting. When they were talking about hiring me, they're like, "Oh, you're gonna have to shave your face and keep the honor code." And I was like, "Ha ha ha ha!" I'm not a student. I'm not 20. And they're like, "No, you'll be shaving your face."
So I went to BYU Law School, and we got a technical foul called on us. The prayer before the basketball game.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we we're thankful for this. Please bless it, and we're thankful for the Cougarettes.
Sure.
I mean, really?
Yeah, we were thankful for them.
Yeah, I'm thankful for the Cougarettes.
Well, who isn't thankful for the
Yeah,
Cougarettes?
Maybe it was the tone. Maybe
I
it
think
was
they
the
took it
tone
wrong.
you
I think
said
they
it.
took it wrong.
Sure.
So, look, radio people are their own special weird crowd.
Oh,
So
yeah.
is that kind of is cross-cultural, isn't it? I mean,
Sure.
do you there's still that kind of cynical bantering when the mics are off and,
Sure,
and radio
sure.
people everywhere.
Sure, that
I mean, maybe
doesn't-
not with the same bad words, but
Sure, but that sort of different way of looking at the world, maybe a little desensitized, maybe, really trying to be empathetic or sympathetic, but sometimes you're just like, okay, again, or this thing. Yeah. I mean, didn't you start in radio or had a stint
yeah,
in
that
radio
is started
yourself?
in radio. Yeah, and that was my. I don't think people that aren't in radio realize that it's after you've done radio, everything else is a little difficult because it's so deeply personal. It's you on the end of this mic and the person who's listening, and as far as they're concerned, and as far as you're concerned, you're not talking to whatever 1,000 people, or you're talking to one person, and they're your friend, and I love the intimacy of it.
Right. The relationship that you build, and you don't even know it, right? So kind of a step further than that, where people will come up from this job now and from the job previous, where people will just be like, either that story you told was unbelievably funny, I couldn't believe it, and I was like, oh, I thought it was mildly entertaining, but really I'm struggling to even remember what you're talking about, or like, you know, that time that you, like, I've always been pretty candid, and I've gone through things like had a hard time with a stepkid or getting divorced, and just being candid about those things. And when people are like, yeah, you know, when you muscled your way through this, or when you broke down about that, I really connected that. And that's something that I don't think you get in a lot of jobs, right? The opportunity to be vulnerable, make connections, both ones that you know about and ones you don't.
And at 50,000 people at a time.
Right.
You know.
Right.
Now, will you still have time to act down in Murray?
At the Desert Star?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did. I was doing a show when I first started at BYU, and I typically just do it one time a year anyway.
Did you have to choose your shows more carefully now that you're officially a cougar? Or,
you know,
I can't really do that.
That's been kind of funny, and I think that I've erred far more on the side of me being cautious than anything that they have said. But it has been funny, like, as far as the radio show itself, you hear BYU radio, and you think we're going to be talking about, you know, church stuff all the time. And actually, the direction is to not talk about anything church related. It's family centered, it's inspirational, but it's not, you know, we're told not to mention the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Can you do that from here? Do you have to go to Provo, or do they let you just do it here?
If my boss is watching, no, I've never just connected on the show from this room. If it's just you guys asking, yes, very much. And so I look forward to not commuting on those really bad winter days, for sure.
That's terrific. And, you know, professionals on the other side, it's seamless anyway. Nobody knows where you are.
Yeah, it doesn't. And I think that's the nicest part about it, too. If it sounds good, if it does the job, it doesn't matter if you were up till 3 a.m. doing it, you're doing it live at the thing, however it is, so long as that final product looks good.
What about you as, in a way, kind of a special ambassador? You bridge the cultures as well as anybody I know. I mean, you really understand the outside world.
Sure.
You know, I mean, you can't be in Radio from Hell all those years and without, you know, those terrific, talented people. And yet you also are totally comfortable in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints culture.
Isn't that a mouthful?
And BYU.
Can't we just be Mormon can't we be the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, like, in identity, and can't we just be Mormons when we're talking about it more than once? Like,
no,
yeah, and the reality.
Let me answer that for you. No.
And the reality is, the devil wins if I say it more than once. But
I mean, well, how can we live in a city that, especially if you read the Tribune comments that is really kind of divided and almost anti-Mormon.
Sure.
You know, whatever the problem is, you're going to see that response, blah, 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 blah. I don't think that's good for a community, actually.
No.
How can we, you might have a solution that other people wouldn't have about how do we bring these sides to people and cultures together?
Yeah, and I would flip it and ask you the same question. Like, you're trying to be the mayor of a pretty polarized city where it's, you know, people that very much love it and guides there every, you know, Tuesday night, they're every Wednesday night, they're every Saturday morning, they're every Sunday for a few hours.
Talking about those drinkers?
Yeah, exactly. No. But then also, you know, those folks who aren't a member of the church. I think for me, and then I am curious as to, I think that you also sort of fill that niche, I guess. But the thing for me is, I think the way that I'm able to come at that point is my dad, strong, stalwart, you know, been in the stake presidency, served in a bishopric, blah, 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 all those kind of things for the majority of my life, and his father before him in the Tabernacle Choir for 20 years. So there's sort of this, you know, bred faithfulness. And then my mom, about 20 years ago, when my parents got divorced, said, out, not interested, don't want to be a part of this anymore. Wow. And so the majority of my life now has been sort of that very thing where there's this strong hand from my father, this strong hand from my mother. I need to not pick one or the other. I need to love both equally, but I also need to find the way that I can, you know, make my way through both of those. So, I mean, it's cliche, but I think it really is like a love is the answer kind of thing. We may come at love differently, but hopefully
But that's hard when you're dealing with an institution.
Sure,
You know what I mean? It's hard. Like, you got a bad relationship with your parents, and I'm not saying that's what you did, but or your ex or your current spouse or whatever. It's love is the answer a little bit, but it's hard when your partner is an institution and you don't even know who you're talking to a lot of the time.
Sure.
And that's true of a city.
Mm-hmm.
How do you put your arms around that? And even if you're the mayor, you don't have the right to give 203,000 people what their opinion is going to be of this and that. So I've had a great meeting with a church person that I really respect and admire, and we talked about this, and we talked about areas that maybe we could come together.
Right.
And I suggested, look, from now on, let's make an arrangement, at least between the two of us. I'll call, because you want to be called the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, I'll call you that. And you don't call me same-sex attracted anymore. Okay. Just call me a homo or queer or, gay or whatever you're comfortable with. But I get it that you don't want to be called that. Who am I to say?
Right.
It's a little awkward for me to say it every time, but if that's the way. But stop calling me same-sex attracted. I don't know what that is, but it sounds creepy. So let's just make that. And he said, okay, it's a deal. So I think as the mayor, one of the common grounds is, look, Salt Lake, people that aren't LDS. We have this really rich uncle who spent a couple of $1 billion on Philadelphia in the center building this fabulous
Which, by the way, have
place.
you seen that place?
No, I haven't seen it.
It's unreal.
And in New York City.
Sure.
And all over Florida.
And right here in Salt Lake City.
But that was a while ago.
Yeah. Okay.
So what my point is, and I said, look, we should not be saying bad things about you. Certainly the mayor shouldn't. It's not our position to take positions on your doctrinal issues.
Sure.
When you get into politics, maybe drinking laws or other things,
Sure.
but doctrinal is not the state. So I should. Can we? First thing is, you're the greatest rich uncle ever. When you build a project, you're not worried about the return on investment next year. We're going to build these affordable housing units, and we got to have blah, 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 triple net return that quick. You can go a while and not get it. You can wait for appreciation, a lot of other things. So as we look at our entranceway on North Temple,
Sure.
or our brand new Grand Boulevard on State Street, or the need we have for affordable housing that might pay off in 5 or 10 or 15 years, like the Brigham Apartments. I want you to be a partner in this.
Sure.
We need you. We need your help. Look what you did with City Creek. And then we need some stuff too.
Sure.
And we need some serious changes in our liquor laws, particularly as with zoning, like we just talked about. So we take some baby steps where we can trust each other, and then hopefully the respect follows, and that we can do big things together. Because look, it's kind of your town. You started it. We get that, and I don't think we have to have this hostility and animosity, but we got to learn to respect and communicate with each other. That's a long answer, but it's 4 in the morning, so.
Well, but the other thing, the other thing or the thing that I would hope that,
Do you have glitter on?
No, it's just tears in my eye.
Oh, okay.
Just tears in my eye. A little bit of tears.
Somebody.
He's so happy you're here.
You moved me.
It was a beautiful.
Anyway.
Yeah, right.
No, but like when you're mayor, I won't say if because
So
when.
face over it this way.
I won't say when. The thing that I really that I both admire about you and would have the expectation that you would continue to do is to model civil behavior that I don't think that all the folks that are running for mayor do. That I don't think that everyone keeps the perspective of, but the world in some respects, and I don't want to be doom and gloom, but there are people being horrible to other people. And I don't think that there's a need for that. But it's really easy to villainize the church and vice versa, right? It's really easy for the church to villainize anything else that it wants to. But I don't think that gets us anywhere, and I don't think that it gets people working together. I don't think it gets people growing together. I don't think it gets progress. I don't think any of those things. And so, you know, if you come at it from a place of being like, listen, let us work together, let us be for the better good, and I'm going to give a little, and you're going to give a little, and modeling that for people to be able to see, and not, you know, not, oh yeah, we really appreciate it, you know, these guys are a bunch of jerks. Like, genuinely appreciating the olive leaves or whatever that are extended, and accepting and giving those back. I think that's going to be a huge difference for this city. And I don't know, for me, you know, that I can think of a mayor or a time where that's really been perfect. I think that'll be
in 2009 when a guy named Bill Evans, who was the head of the church's, what was he, the governmental relations or like
public affairs,
chief lobbyist maybe, or a lobbyist. It was right after the first big summit between the gays and the Mormons, and we'd never sat down before. Because I was saying that.
No, it was Mormons. You're fine. It's a historical context.
Back in the day.
And Bill said to me, with some amount of wisdom at that time, because he was one of the point guys on Prop 8, and he's changed completely now, but obviously it took some time. So there was a big kiss in on that little touch of Paris, you know, between the church office building and Temple Square, and there'd been an incident, and it's a long story, but a bunch of gay people showed up and started kissing each other on that property. And then the next week, and it went okay, you know, they said, "You're forbidden to come on," and we said, "Well, you're going to arrest like 100 of us because we're all coming down," and everybody was kissing everybody. It was really something. It was like an Al Franken reunion.
Yeah.
You know? So, anyway, so the next weekend, we'd had our first meeting, and Bill called and said, "Look, there was a friendly kiss in, but we hear that there's going to be kind of a more militant kiss in. So will you come down?" And I thought, wow, that's a moment, right?
Right.
This is the guy that wouldn't return my phone calls for 14 years saying, "Come down." So I put on my costume, my missionary outfit, and the white shirt and all, and I went down there and stood as whatever they were doing, the kissing, and turned out not to be violent or anything. But as we were standing...
Violent kissing, that's an interesting...
As we were standing on South Temple, a group of gay people came by and started screaming obscenities and giving the middle finger and everything to Bill Evans and me.
Right.
And I looked over at him, and I went, "Oh yeah?" And I gave them the finger and said some unkind things back to him. And they just looked astonished, and to this day, I am sure they're telling the story a different way.
Yeah.
So Bill said to me after, and he still hadn't come along all that far, but he said to me, "Look, I can tell after this first meeting, which turned into a 3-hour, really emotional thing for everybody that was there." And he said, "Look, we can't respond to moments." He said, "We're climbing up Mount Timpanogos, and there's going to be all kinds of back hitches up along. You know, we're going to make progress, and then somebody's going to say something, or somebody's going to do something. There's going to be a demonstration, and the sides will call for war, and, you know, to break off everything." He said, "Let's keep an eye on the trajectory of where we're going, consider all the bad places we've gone." And there's been 20 times over the years where somebody gave a boneheaded speech and where I just said, you know, "I'm not responding to that. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to be public. There's plenty of people that will, but let's just see how it's going and how far, and we're still going up in a basic way." So I think that's critical on both sides, on the higher level, that we say, all right, look, let's just prove everybody wrong. Let's work on projects together. You know, when the Homeless Youth Center was opened up, that was basically the gay community and the LDS Church and a lot of other people, but working together. And I begged everybody to put on their a joint project of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and the gay community, but everybody thought it was a terrible idea, but I think it would have been. We gotta make these steps and then let people know that we're making the steps.
Well, and even within that, right? So like when people start to villainize the church, there are a lot of really, true believing members of the church who don't feel necessarily the way that it seems top down, right? Not on these huge doctrinal things. I think most of us kind of are like, yeah, we believe the prophet, we all these kind of things. But that we're sort of hoping too. And when someone comes at us and says, oh, the evil church, even if we would be likely to kind of join with them at the point that they attack this very core thing that is a part of our life, it just separates. If we can, like you say, kind of keep an eye on it. And
it doesn't mean that there won't be people that are going to be, and maybe those voices lead the way for change. So I don't want to muzzle anybody or tell them what to say or draw lines for them or do anything on either side. But as far as my own personal way, I think it's a rare moment that the mayor of the city ought to be throwing him or herself into the midst of this in any way other than he is trying to bring the city together.
Yeah.
So
the church on LGBTQ issues, it clearly moves.
Is that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter?
Yeah.
Okay.
What other church? What are we
you can say it anyway you want. I'm teasing you.
It clearly moves in response to pressure. I mean, 2009 was after Prop 8. It felt a lot of pressure. The Kiss In put pressure, but there's a lot of societal pressure coming at it now, and it does need, like Richie just said, it needs a friendly ear. It needs a friendly face where somewhere it can go to say, okay, we'd like to move. We'd like to, feels like we went down on, we'd like to climb back up. How can we do something here? And, I'm going to tell this story later, so you won't want to go to sleep.
Okay. I already don't.
Yeah, you'll want to stay up for this, but I'm telling the story later about how, when we did pass the non-discrimination legislation in 2015, we had hit an absolute impasse. It was over.
Yeah.
And I said, I got other things to work on. I'm done here. And, Jim, the next morning, I showed up ready to work on those other things. He's like, we're good. And, he had a conversation that he did not tell me who it was with. I found out, I think 3 or 4 years later. But, he had a relationship and was able to say, okay, it's time to start climbing back up. So that is something I lose perspective on.
Right.
And, it's interesting. We fight on these issues together, and, I know everything you said, and I do believe that, but I just get, and it's interesting. Jim, who has lived the life, walked the walk, is much more calm than I am. He's like, Steve, we're making progress.
I mean, it really just does come to that crossing. The thing that I think that I get frustrated with is, the whole walk a mile in the other person's shoes, right? In some ways, I think on both sides, people get locked into a corner and just get defensive and don't even get the chance to think about what the other side may be or recognize, I don't even have an experience with what you're talking about, but you have come at me so much that I can't take this opportunity to even think what you're talking about. Yeah. I feel like I just have to fight what I'm fighting, where if there's someone going, hold on, let's just talk about this. Oh, you're right. Yeah, these rights for everyone, that makes sense. Yes, of course.
You just described Washington, I think, to a T, right? I mean, if the Republicans came up with a cure for cancer, the Democrats would say, yeah, but is it in a tablet form? And and vice versa. I mean, I think the very survival of the nation starts getting close, and we got to figure out a way to solve a whole bunch of problems.
Do you know what no one talks about when we look at the dysfunction of Washington, D.C.? That largely started when they moved to a 4-day work week. Absolutely true.
Really?
It's when the congressmen started flying in on Monday, flying out Thursday night. When it was a 5-day week, they would just stay, and they would have their social events. they knew each other. They had relationships.
Interesting.
Now they don't have relationships. And you know, it's interesting. It's not going to be much different than what we do at the Capitol. It's if you have a relationship with someone, when you're in a pinch, you can go to them and say, "Look, don't burn me on this. I'm in a bad situation. You're in a bad situation. Let's figure this out."
Right.
You can only do that if you really have taken time to sit down, you've broken bread, and you know each other.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Because a lot of politics and life, really, it gets back to a trust. You know, if you're in politics and you're doing a big deal, and you're going to have to take a risk on something the way Steve heroically did on, I mean, he's the guy that pulled all that together. This conservative guy from St. George. I mean, he's the one that rocked the world and got the legislature to listen up and do stuff. But that took some trust to get out there that the people he was going to work weren't going to cut the saw off the part of the branch he was on. So it takes a while, and you really do have to be careful because people will saw you off, and that's why you need these trusts, so that when that moment of something big happening, you can call and say, "Look, I'm going to do this, and you're going to do that." It's got to happen.
Well, and we the division is out there. It is real, and it's unfortunate. You know, if the barbarians were banging on the gates of the temple, I would be there to defend it. I would. But I'm afraid that the church thinks I'm one of the barbarians because I criticize the political involvement. But you know, however fractured we are, it can be put back in the box. I think of when I was starting to help with the LGBTQ issues. You know, I'm out there for my constituents. My neck's out there a mile. And who comes and starts sawing on it? Freaking Troy Williams. You know, he came up and
from Equality Utah.
Sure.
From
head of Equality.
Well, he wasn't at the time. Oh, okay. He was just some rabble rouser, and so they came. The Cap 13 came up and they protested because they wouldn't hear the bill, and so
they wouldn't even go to hearing.
Yeah, and so I liked that. That was good. Raised the pressure. But then they started blocking doors to committee rooms, and you know, Troy and I'd never met. We actually had talked on the phone that morning. Hey, we're going to come out. I'm like, great, that's good. Do that and then leave.
Right.
So I'm like, now's the time when you leave.
Right.
And he's like, no, we're being arrested. I'm like,
please no.
You're hurting me so much here.
Right.
My neck's out, and so I was pissed at him, and he was pissed at me. It escalated, and it escalated a lot. But, you know, a good friend who had the faith and trust of both of us, she said, okay, children, we're going to sit down, we're going to figure this out. And, you know, I think so much of her. I love Troy. I mean, we're going out tomorrow night and excited about that. And, you know, so it just comes down. Again, I'm sticking to my theory on Washington, D.C. and the 4-day work week. All these things come down to relationships, sitting down and, you know, just realizing you're working with a deal maker, someone who's a good person.
Right.
We can deal.
Christopher's my intern here, and he's been great today. But he also works for Ben McAdams right now. So we went out to the airport to pick up Ben tonight. So we picked him up, and then we got on tracks and went down and had 15, 20 minutes to talk to him, and he said, you know what? The single biggest eye-catching moment so far has been, I just went down to the border and spent 2 days down there with a whole contingent of Republicans and Democrats. And he said, just as Steve said, that hadn't happened. I don't know them. I can't meet them. I don't know who they are. But when we were down there and forced to fly down, spend Friday all day together, and then Friday night and the meals and breakfast, and then I think he said they left Saturday. He said, I got to know some Republicans, and that was really, but look, there's a big reward politically for not sitting down, for being the buffoon, for rallying the troops, for being the one to stand up, blah, 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 blah. That's a high payoff politically. And I had to worry about that because I'm trying to represent the 203,000 people in blue Salt Lake City.
Right.
And on the floor of the Senate, what I think is logical, reasonable explanation on why we need Medicaid expansion and why we shouldn't have gerrymandering and why we need clean air and why we should blah, 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 blah. And some people think that's being divisive. Well, it is kind of being divisive. And the Republicans like to take credit. Well, we're not Washington. It's easy to not be Washington if you get everything you want on every vote, and say, we're together and look how, well, let's get a 50-50 legislature and then we'll see just how gentle and a go along you guys are. So I'm not saying it's easy.
Yeah, I spoke at Rebecca Chavez's house. She taught a class up at the U, and so I was reflecting on how I was a much more effective and powerful legislator when I would just get on that red meat steamroller, Things were easier than when I, started coming
See some gray.
When I started seeing some gray, then I'm a rhino and
Okay, I got a great story about this. Steve was from St. George, Washington County, and they have a big Lincoln Day, is it?
Yeah.
All right, so...
Wait, so what?
Lincoln Day breakfast.
So that's what it is.
Okay. How do you guys not know this?
Okay.
You guys are the crummiest Republicans in the state.
Okay. A Lincoln Day, sure.
This is a big deal. It's a big breakfast, and
everybody's
wears
there.
the red, white, and blue, and Saturday morning you have
I don't even know when Lincoln Day is.
It's
made up holiday for Republicans to
no,
raise money.
It's like middle of February.
President's Day.
Yeah, but it's only for party members, and they pay $100 and they raise money, and it's red meat.
Okay,
and,
all right.
Right? That's what it is. So Steve called
Beautiful
me.
Saturday, St. George. We spent indoors, good 6-7 hours of speeches.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Okay, so do you remember what I'm? You know what
No,
I'm
I have no idea where you're
so Steve called me one day. So there was a woman who was the head of the Democratic Party, maybe. She had Democratic ties, and she was the head of the newly emerged gay organization. And I think she was a gay kid, just a wonderful, wonderful woman. And she had called Steve or told him, I am going to the Lincoln Day dinner.
I know this story, and I'm so embarrassed.
Well, no, exactly. But I mean, you don't want me to tell the rest of it.
No, go ahead. It's fine. I say
you probably
no,
tell it
no,
better,
you,
but
no, go
I
ahead.
mean, he said, "Look, I love this lady," and he had just kind of was taking those first steps on LGBT stuff, and she was going to bring a whole contingent of gay people and Democrats to hand out flyers saying what a great guy Steve was, and she had no idea what she was doing, and Steve thought maybe she's a plant or what.
No, I mean,
she didn't get the full.
No, but it was. I think that was on me because she was so excited. I mean, so many people in the state were excited that a Republican was actually, working on the right phrasing, the right terms,
sure,
and coming around on it. So there was so much enthusiasm, and I didn't know how to handle that, and I handled it poorly because I knew that I was out there in my district, and I thought they would come around, and I think correctly so, but it couldn't be all at once. And so, I wish that I would have
been
there. You're not at the Lincoln Day breakfast. I mean, okay, I guess I'm not so embarrassed about that one, but other things, I should have just accepted the embrace more and returned it, and not been so worried about the political consequences.
Yeah, interesting.
But it was just an amazing journey politically. I mean, I just felt like I traveled miles, but personally, it made me a much better human being. And I don't know if a lot of people can say that after 16 years in a legislative body.
That's
but
awesome.
It really was fabulous.
The thing that I think with that though is like look at the strength then by doing something that maybe people wouldn't have expected, or by expanding a little bit more of who you were and what you were. Like people would know, oh, I know Steve, I expect him to blah 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 blah. But then when you veered left when people thought you would have done right, I think that people go, whoa, Steve veered left. And that honestly, you know, I walk around my neighborhood here and I see nothing but Jim DeBacchus for mayor signs, and I'm like, yeah, and the reason why I, you know, plan to vote for you and hope that this is the thing that becomes the thing is I think that you can speak to those people who have the expectation that you will do the things that you know you're going to do, you know, the things like the rights for anything as far as LGBTQ, right? That seems like a natural fit. Some things that we sort of expect Democratic Party line to do, but that also sometimes you'll be like, hey guys, hang on, let's hear these folks out. Let's see where there can be some bridges that are mended as opposed to us, them, nothing getting done. Because there are a lot of people within Salt Lake who are, you know, I would assume it's majority blue. I don't know statistics. You guys would probably work that. Yeah, but there are some of us that are red that are like, hey, we matter too. I'm not hating people, but listen to me. I matter too. I want to be behind you as well.
Well, they're telling me we gotta go.
I was just gonna say, so Richie, can I ask you, does that mean we can get an official endorsement from you?
Only if I get a sign. But
Jim!
Actually, you know what? I don't want a sign. I want you in my front yard.
Okay,
there we go. There we go.
But I mean, I would like, you know, it's not a job or anything, but I think we need people like you that kind of understand the two cultures, because we get so ensconced. You can't even believe that when you're totally immersed in Rachel Maddow, you can't even believe that. I can't even think of anybody over there. You know, I mean,
yeah. We need to be more bipartisan, nonpartisan. You have Rachel Maddow, and then
whatever they do.
Who's the guy that got fired? That's the guy I thought about.
I hate them all on both sides.
We're doing it live, guy? Is that who you're thinking of? Because that's who I'm thinking of, and I can't. Bill O'Reilly.
Bill O'Reilly, but he's so far, and then he went, better not go there. That shows O'Reilly. Anyway, thank you so much, especially in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
It's really nice.
Did you restore all this? Did you do all this?
Yeah, well, so some of it I did, and some of it I said, you know who would do this better? Someone that I paid to do it. So.
That's what I believe in life, and anything that has to do with repairing.
Well, that was awesome. Thank you, guys.
Yeah,
Where are you going now?
We don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah. All right,
brother. Good to see you.
Thanks.
I think that was terrific.
Yeah, thank you guys.
So much.
And yes, as far as the endorsement goes, this guy. But I really want to sign, otherwise I'm taking that back.
Okay, Dad! We'll get you one.
Thanks, you guys.
All right, thanks, Rich.
Some blue hair, my man, right? Always a pleasure. Well, thank you, sir. Thank you. Sorry about this schedule.
We're going to
Go
visit
to
the mayor.
Oh, great. Thanks, Richie. That was fun.
Yeah.
Sarah, we have a couple of drinks from the back.
Okay, Sarah,
Caffeinated.
we need to have a sign right here.
Okay.
Do it.
Yeah, he's giving an official endorsement. Thanks, Richie.
Thank you, guys. Have a good night.
All right, see you, Richie. Good night. As fast as possible.
How are you doing?
Good. Okay. It's not like I can go anywhere unless I call a lift, and I'm okay for right now.
Y'all got my car.
I know. I'm okay. Whoa. Pardon me.
Okay.
Like, I took it off the wrong arm first.
Here, I'll get the door.
Oh, got it. Okay. Thanks, Jim.
Yep, you got a cord here.
Oh, thank you.
There you go.
Hi. Yeah, I want a rock star, please. I don't care. Oh, and
I'll get it.
It's like one of these waters wasn't closed.
All right, that was that. And now we're getting the van loaded back up. and we're headed. This is a bit of an interesting call because I really wanted to talk. Is this 2 or 1?
What?
Where we're going now?
2 people.
It is Marianna and the
yes.
mayor. Okay, great.
And possibly a 3rd.
So, this whole business of being a mayor, I was gonna call Jackie and see if she wanted to be on, but it's bad at 3 a.m. Or some other people. But there's a mayor, and I didn't ask Jackie. The best thing, but I like this woman, Charwood, who is the mayor of South Salt Lake. And we had coffee, and I just enjoyed talking to her about how does this job work? What do you like? How do you deal with the council? What's the success? How does it all work? And what works good in South Salt Lake and that kind of thing. So that's where we're headed now to talk to a real life Utah mayor. Who have been mayors you've worked with? Like, and what have they done?
So I was able to work with 2 great mayors. So my district primarily was St. George. Now I worked with Ivan, Santa Clara. They had great mayors also, but St. George I was able to work with Mayor Dan MacArthur and then John Pike, and we would sit down like every other Saturday during the session and work through a lot of issues. And so we got we really had some hard discussions and impassioned discussions, but we knew we were such a small delegation that we had to be on the same page. We couldn't be divided. And the leadership we received from our mayors was wonderful.
So you would sit down with the 3 mayors that were part of your Senate district and the House members as well?
Oh yeah, the whole delegation.
Everybody that represented
House
Washington
members,
County.
senators, yeah.
And what have mayors, there's a lot of bills, and I would guess most of the bills they don't really have a strong opinion on, or did you go over everything?
Oh, no, it's just a few bills. Again, I want to talk to you about billboards and about inland port, and I think those issues, I want to be somewhat sensitive about it, but I think that a unified delegation with mayoral leadership was an issue in this.
And you, give me an example of the kind of things that you might have had a difference of opinion within the delegation or within the mayors and the delegation, and then you just kind of work with everybody to make sure you come up with would it be funding, or would it be money for your university, or would it be road money, or what kind of things would there be a disagreement on?
A lot of it would have to do with infrastructure. Inland port is an infrastructure issue. So municipalities have certain ways they want to do it. They want to have certain flexibility in the state. If it involves something that affects the whole state or state money, then the state wants to jump in. So I think Utopia, that was a big one. 2003 or so, the municipalities wanted to do their own fiber systems, and to the state, that was Harold Hill and the boys band. We thought that was just fiction and ridiculous. And
Utopia was what?
It was a fiber network. In our perspective,
so like Wi-Fi kind of thing. Or
it was fiber, supposed to be fiber to the home, and it's turned out to be a disaster, I would say. West Valley, for example, they're on the hook to pay for that forever, and I don't know if any of their customers are hooked up to it. And so we were saying, slow down. The reason you're being involved in this and putting your credit on the line is because the market thinks this is a bad idea. So we wanted to put some requirements to make sure that things were done properly, and so my mayor was just furious about that. Who are you, the state, to step in and tell us how to do it? And so we had some long, this was early in my career, and that's why I remembered some very long, difficult conversations about this. I mean, this happens all the time. The League of Cities and Towns, one of the great relationships I developed there was when the director was calling my city council members, telling them that I was bad, telling them that I was a bad representative, and I took issue with that, and so he and I sat down and had some harsh words, and we figured things out, and developed quite a relationship.
Did he end up getting indicted?
Possibly.
Okay, just wondering if that's the same kind of person. Well, and that's interesting to see how the mayors work with the legislators. How many would be in the delegation from Washington County?
So the population kept shifting that way. So I went through 2 redistricting exercises, and both times we added representation. So when I started, we would have had 1 senator and 3 reps, 2 and part of a rep. And when I left, we had 2 senators and 5 reps.
2 senators and 5 reps just from Washington County.
Right, and we did a very good job of being unified on issues. Early in my career, I saw an opportunity to get a building for Dixie and Shaft SUU, and I figured I'm gonna take this, and it was stupid because I couldn't have got it anyway, but so did it. And Tom Hatch, who was the senator over Washington and Iron counties, he had me up against the wall by my lapels, and he's like, we don't do this. And things get, and I love Tom. Tom saved me from a few things, but I thought that was a great learning experience.
Did he really physically, or is that kind of?
No, he had me against the wall by my lapels, but it meant nothing to me other than, Tom and I have a relation. That was fine. I say that with love and respect. I learned an important lesson. He
was right.
He wouldn't have done that had he known that would be a problem for me. He's just like, Steve, let's communicate here. So I thought it was great. It's one of my great moments.
He could tell you were physical, and that's what you were going to hear.
I'm the youngest of 4 boys. If you punch me in the nose, you're paying attention to me. What are we going to do?
Cool. Here we are.
Yeah, we would do that a lot. That's an important element, is for the mayor to sit down with the delegation, hear what they have to say, state a position, and then lead a discussion to where the delegation can be unified. And Salt Lake is kind of in the same way, despite having much bigger population than St. George.
The problem Salt Lake has is Salt Lake City should have 2 senators, and we should have 5 or 6 representatives. But it doesn't work that way, because the Democrats are so insistent on getting those Democratic rich voters that we have Murray, and we've got Mill Creek, and we've got West Valley, and it doesn't serve the city well. Are we bringing any of this in? Okay.
Okay. We're at 66 right here.
Okay.
Can I open that for you?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Yep.
And one of the waters opened, and I put your jacket over it because I sat in a big pile of water.
Publishers Clearinghouse.
Where's your check?
Oh my goodness.
Publishers.
Jim DeBacchus. Hi,
And,
Jimmy.
and crew.
Hi, crew. You remember Walter.
Yes, yeah, Walter.
Walter, come here.
Okay, yeah, I got one.
Come here.
That's a good boy.
Come here, buddy. Thank you.
Terrific. Yeah, we're a little bright. So we're going down on the... This is terrific. Are the beavers working? This is terrific.
Great lighting. I love it.
Luckily, I brought a light.
He's gonna be.
Walter, it's your house. We're just glad to be
know.
there. Well, let's get Marianna and Steve on the couch here, and
do this.
and our other.
Oh, we can.
Yeah, you're a guest host. You're a guest host. Marianna, come on in.
Steve Urquhart.
Steve, why don't you get here? Oh, well, whatever we said before, it wasn't true. You know?
Oh, yeah.
Well, thank you. Why don't we introduce everybody? Marianna Southey is a terrific human being who I have known since she was 13, and she was actually, you were an intern for me, right?
Jim gave me my first job as his intern producer of his talk radio show when I was 13 years old and had not a clue about anything. But
her dad is the great artist Trevor Southey, and
oh wow!
So that's how we got to know each other. Are you close enough to hear us?
I'm hoping so.
All right. And so I'm Jim DeBacchus. This is, if you're just tuning us in, this is not Meet the Press. It is the Mayor-a-Thon. They just came up with that midway through.
I like it. It's good.
Yeah, that's awesome. Mayor-a-Thon.
Good.
And we're on, what hour are we on, Sarah?
Oh, I stopped counting.
Yeah, we're
That's math.
hour 3 of our 24 hours.
you must be exhausted.
I think it's 16, 17.
Yes,
Yeah,
16 or 17.
Yeah.
Steve Urquhart, who's our guest host, and a woman that I got to know only once, really, and then I've called her a couple of times. And I liked what she said about being mayor, and it was just interesting and fun talking to you. So I just thought we'd have a cool discussion. Oh, Marianna's running for the
South Salt Lake City Council.
At large.
Mm-hmm.
See, I should be at large. So, Mayor, why don't you tell us about South Salt Lake and how you got into politics?
Perfect.
And
So,
let's lean in more with the light, more directly. Yeah, so you can.
So I started working for the city of South Salt Lake when I was 19 years old, just taking water utility payments, and as jobs opened, I just applied for them, and I got to a certain point where I knew that I needed to go back to school and get my degree if I wanted to go any higher. Shortly after I did that, the mayor, previous to me, Mayor Gray, asked me to be his chief of staff. So I'm like, yeah, I love South Salt Lake. My sons are 4th generation South Salt Lake residents. I've never left the city. I bought my first and second home here, and I just really cared about creating a safe, strong community that I was going to raise my sons in. So when he decided he was only going to run for one term, he said, you know, I've been thinking about this. I really think that you should consider running. And I looked at him. I'd honestly never considered running for elected office. And I just said, you know what, Bob, I said, people are mean and politics suck. And I just don't know that I've got the skin for it. But I took the weekend and I'm like, all my institutional knowledge is about South Salt Lake, and really felt that I had a passion for the community and wanted to see some good change. And so decided to do it. Didn't have any funding, didn't know how to fundraise, so just bought a book off of Amazon. It was called The Campaign Manager, and I'd study it at night and ran a grassroots campaign. And
when was this? What year was this?
2009. So 10 years in, yeah.
Yay.
And so you've been mayor 10 years.
Yeah. Yep.
That's fantastic.
How many people in South Salt Lake?
So during the day, 75,000, but actually, nighttime residents is about 26,000.
So who gets the vote, the daytime or the nighttime?
The nighttime. It's the nighttime population that's the most important. So, but yeah, it's a fun little town.
And how's the relationship between Salt Lake and South Salt Lake on a governmental basis?
That's been really good. We've always felt like we're the little sister to Salt Lake City, and
I mean, there's no thought of an invasion or where
we
would
always hear
send our
rumors.
Police department down and take over your city hall and get all that, huh?
Yeah. No, there's always rumors, but
What would be what could be an issue that would come up between the two cities?
Just looking at partnering with development where our boundaries meet. We've talked about that recently, having some redevelopment along 21st South, where you end and where we start as a city.
And that's primarily north is Salt Lake City and south is South Salt Lake. That would make sense.
Yeah. Yep. That's it.
And that's it, huh?
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's terrific.
I think now we're a partner in the homeless.
Yeah.
So that's kind of new.
Tell us what's going on with that. There's been some recent
Yeah,
developments. You
there's
spent time with Greg Hughes tonight.
Yeah, I watched.
Oh.
Yeah, no. So I think our concern and what's happened recently was.
So tell us about what Salt Lake got 2 of the homeless, and South, you got 1 of them. Which one did you have, and where is it, and how many people will be there?
So Salt Lake City got the all-female, and then the 200 I think, and then 200 another facility for mixed, for male and female, that's 200, and then we got 300 bed all men. And so when they were citing it in South Salt Lake and they were looking at certain properties, we had concerns because one, I think that we're a community with a big heart. We have a lot of amazing promise programs that we've put in place for our youth, and we really try to solve issues, larger issues than our community. And so we really wanted to be a partner and play a role in how this looks. But financially, having that in our community could really, if we're not helped financially, could be devastating. We have a very small budget compared to Salt Lake City and the county. So that's what happened, and we're now to the point where we're supposed to be opening these centers, and we went through a conditional use permit phase. We bifurcated it because we could see that there was some issues in the public hearings for our planning commission along the lines of just the operation. Everybody's really nervous about not having a Rio Grande along the Jordan River. So we bifurcated it so they could start building the building. That happened last May. They got their permits, had to wait for some geopiers to be delivered so they could start construction. Now we're almost built, and we're discussing the conditional use permit for operations. And I know that Shelter the Homeless, I sit on that board. It's very stressful. We're under a time crunch to open these up, but I feel my first job is to look out for my city, and we feel strongly that certain promises that were made, that this would be a different model, and the things that would ensure that it's a different model are the biggest ones that we're getting pushback from Shelter the Homeless on. So our concern is that one of the conditions we've placed on there, and our biggest concern is that active drug users not be allowed there. They're supposed to have treatment beds for those where people can get help, so it's a safe place for the men that are transitioning out of housing or out of homelessness. And that's where we're seeing a big pushback. So we're really concerned about not having.
So they won't agree to, or nobody's you want to say nobody who's actively using can stay here, and they're unwilling to make that commitment.
And they're saying that, you know, we're being horrible and we want to force these people out into the heat or the cold, but that's not the situation at all. We've been told in this model to be different, and we were promised numerous times about what facility we're going to get and the population that it would address. And it was supposed to be a low needs population of men who were just struggling with housing, or you know, would just get up and go to work as they, you know, work to get secure housing. Just because of proximity to resources. It's out on 10th West along the Jordan River. There's really not anything close out there for resources, so if it was a higher need population, that would be concerning. There's not a transportation plan in place, and now we're hearing there's not funding for these things. So
so you were promised X, that's not materializing. Who is it that was supposed to deliver on those, and who is not delivering on those promises?
Well, so
is that the state, or
the majority of the promises came from Mayor McAdams, as he was the, you know,
so the county,
who was citing the location in South Salt Lake, and he said this site would work because we would have a low needs population. So even though it's not close to, you know, grocery store or resources or really transportation to get them to whatever resources.
So
they
a
need.
population that needs treatment beds, they're still, you thought they wouldn't come to your center, but they are, because there aren't treatment beds available. Is that the situation?
That's what I'm understanding right now.
And who would have squelched on that? Who would have not delivered on that? Is that state? Is that county?
Well, I just in articles that, you know, I've read, the Shelter of the Homeless Board just worked with the county to secure a $21 million loan based on the lack of funding. So, I mean, I understand that this is expensive, but I feel like if we're really going to solve the problem and serve our homeless population better and have a safe environment for them to actually transition out of homelessness, that we have to have a different model, and we have to stick to that different model, whether it costs more or not.
we were just talking about political courage and doing the right thing, and when your neck is out there, and obviously,
it's there.
Obviously your neck is way out there. I'm good friends with Troy Walker and Draper, so I can bomb on him while he's not here. You know, Troy's a big-hearted guy, and so he's like, Draper'd be interested in this, and then 3 hours later, after he hears from his constituents, like, we're not interested in this. And no, for you to say, okay, we'll take a look. You have to represent your constituents, and if you were promised X, that's your job, is to fight for X, right?
Who has the control? Is this like the Inland Port Board, that is, whatever they promise you, whatever they're saying, they control this property one way or another, and you're either going to give them the permit or they're just going to do it anyway?
Well, I believe all involved that are at the table really have the best interest and want to solve this. I think we're coming down to time constraints and funding constraints. You know, one of the other things in the conditional use permit that was kind of a sticking point to us as a community is we got some legislation passed that would secure about $2.6 million, which would cover 12 police officers, 12 firefighters for that area, which is just really 2 every shift. So it's not like there's 12 new, you know, officers in that area. But it was based off of having this different model and having a low needs population. And our concern is, you know, legislators change and their passions might not be
leadership changes.
Yeah, and so that legislation could change, and if we ever in the future, you know, 10 years, lose that funding, that would be devastating to our community when it comes to public safety.
So what are your options? You just go back to the table and keep...
Well, I would say, you know, South Salt Lake's still at the table. We'd love to have a conversation about, you know, maybe what the why behind why these things we're being told that our conditions would not allow it to function like it needs to. But, you know, I think my community is saying, well, then how is this a different model?
Yeah. If we just move Rio Grande down here, we haven't accomplished a lot.
Yeah.
So, Marianna, you're running? Why?
Clearly, I'm a masochist. I think my life just got too easy, so I had to shake things up. But also, I was inspired by you.
Oh.
No, it's true. You were an
And
early
so,
mentor.
If this guy can do it, anybody can do it. That's the way I'm. So, really, you will be the at-large. That means you'll be the city council person who represents
So that means
everybody.
I'm trying to knock on every door in this town, which is exhausting, especially when it's 103 degrees. But I'm trying.
And what are you finding? What's the issue that's keeping everybody awake at night in South Salt Lake?
This homeless shelter is a big issue. Taxes are a big issue. South Salt Lake is the smallest and the poorest, and sometimes we feel like the county just, we're the dumping ground for the undesirable stuff. And I'm on the planning commission, and we've been talking about the homeless shelter. I've been part of these discussions, and I just feel like, aside from any kind of impact on us, a one-size-fits-all solution is not going to help. I mean, if we don't have the treatment beds, if we don't have mental health care, but just putting all single men in this one-size-fits-all situation just doesn't seem to solve much of anything. And we have to also watch out for the neighbors in that neighborhood. There's a new elementary school going in right there, and it's
well, and the time to fight the funding and resource battle is before the doors open. So
right, we're just trying to get the best deal we can.
Yeah.
Because this was kind of thrust upon us, and we're trying to get the best deal we can. So that's something for sure. But when I'm knocking on doors, I'm just trying to stress to everybody that with regards to the taxes and the budget and all of this is that, we're part of a greater regional economy, and we just have to deal with all of the larger incentives in place with that for things like what we have to pay our police and
people don't want to hear that.
No, they don't. But I don't want to just tell people what they want to hear. I want to win, sure. Yes, Walter, I know. But
you're slacking.
But the only promise I'm making is that I will listen respectfully to all sides of any issue and keep the lines of communication open, because making big campaign promises is just setting yourself up for a lot of potential problems down the road. But it's been fascinating. It's been so fun getting to meet a bunch of my neighbors. I've met some amazing people, and
How much does a campaign cost for city council?
Oh, you can spend next to nothing and just print up photocopies and do it on your own, or I was told to do a really good, solid, at-large campaign. You're looking at like $25,000.
And how are you raising money? You just call everybody in?
Well, I did some Facebook blasting, and a bunch of my old friends from back in San Francisco have been throwing down a little bit, and my husband gave me $100 today, but it is my birthday, so
happy birthday!
Yeah, happy birthday!
But no, lots of little, like $50 here, $50 there. It's adding up, and we had a couple of little events, and we'll be doing a few more. And Beehive Distillery hosted our first one, and we've got all these great new businesses. Cherie's been instrumental in really
You've been bringing
helping
the booze
us.
too.
Well,
the booze industry, the distillery row.
We've made it easier. Yeah, distillery
yeah.
and breweries. It's kind of a fun stretch of our town because we host our mural fest down there as well, and so every year we've done 10 murals between 21st and the water tower, and along there's I think 4 breweries and 2 distilleries.
Yeah.
And it's becoming this really exciting, walkable stretch. I was at an event at the Ritz Classic Apartments last night, and all these hip young people living there are so thrilled that we actually have a downtown that's exciting, where they can walk to a grocery store, they can walk to one of these breweries, and there's a fun little community there. I love that we have a downtown.
I spent some time today walking the Jordan, on the parkway there. How's your stretch coming, and what do you anticipate? How can that turn into something dramatic.
The county has been helpful in that way. They McAdams named it a regional park to help get funding down there. I think that we're looking at lighting and maybe potentially security cameras. We also have the Tracy Aviary coming in, which we're super excited about. You know, they'll be doing bike rentals and canoe rentals, which any activation of that area, I think just gets more eyes down there. And I've been hosting last August and September Mondays with the mayor, just ride the Jordan River Trail with us. And it was so fun and then we canoed it with the help of Soren Simonson from Jordan River Commission, providing the canoes and helping us. But it's so fun because people get down there, they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know that this was down here. This is so cool. Like every time there was an experience. We were never feeling unsafe, and it's just been fun.
So if I get elected, maybe we could like meet on the water at the border, and we could see who could swim through with Soren's canoes. You know?
There you go.
Or something, right?
There you go.
We could make it fun.
I mean, that is such an amazing opportunity. And I talk to me as a mayor and as a maybe mayor. I'm not cocky about this. I mean, there's 8 great candidates and 7 great candidates and me. But I mean, I'm not that way. But how do you get the resources to when the litany of affordable housing and hungry children and all the list of everything, potholes and the rest, to put money into a project which is just going to be phenomenal in the generations to come, where our population is going to go up so much, but to commit that kind of money now as a city, or do we look at regional and wait for other people to make commitments, or do we want the state to do it, or
I think it's a combination of everything and in anything, like whatever funding source is available. In fact, Sharon's here, and she is a magnet for grant funds and has pulled off some pretty amazing projects in our community, and it's just weaving funding together. We provide after school programs for 2,500 youth on an investment of $80,000. So all the other funds are either philanthropic or grant funds from all levels.
So you're talking about from the city? That's the contribution to the pot.
That funds the grant writer, and so that writes the grants and manages them.
I see what you mean. So you hire a good grant writer, and they pay back their weight in gold.
Yeah, so 14.
Could we have the name and phone number of that grant writer?
We're not sharing.
Nope. That is undercover information. Even, no. So she's amazing. So
somebody was telling me that if you want to build something, you should go to South Salt Lake or other places, because in Salt Lake there's so much bureaucracy and it's so hard and whatever. And then I've had mayors say, developers say that about everywhere else, because
I've heard that.
that they're trying to pit you against the next one and say, why are you the only place? So is that, you've been ex-mayor for a long time, is that true? And how do you
I think everybody that experiences developing in a community, it has their own unique experience. We have right now what we call unicorn projects, because they're so big and so massive for our community that there's just so many moving parts and pieces for a city of our size, and a community development department that has 2 planners and 3 building inspectors, that when you have development like
2 planners and 3 building inspectors. So it's okay in the old South Salt Lake, but where you get these massive apartments and the walk and all of that, you're suddenly going
we have some really big developments coming in our area that's around Winco that we developed like a downtown, so mixed use. And
right to the south, the 21st South there.
Yep, right.
A block east of State Street.
Yeah, where Winco is.
Could we take that over?
Nope. we were too hard.
Mill Creek thinks says you can, but
no. It's taken us quite a bit of time to get it up and going, and we're super excited because that area of the city, if you take 21st South, I-80, State Street, and I-15, there's over 500,000 car trips there a day.
Same guy? Or
Yeah. It's kind of creepy.
Sorry,
No.
punchy
Yeah.
and punchy.
No, but
Sorry.
you know, that's how we told our story to get Winco to be interested in that area was, and then you have the tracks and the streetcar, so you can get anywhere in the valley from that Central Point tracks stop in right there at 21st and 2nd West. So we really wanted to develop accordingly with all of that amazing transportation infrastructure in our community. And so we really felt like if there was a place for density, that would be it.
Where do you think the population will be in 20 years if you're 25,000 now? You got a lot of developable
Yeah.
area.
I just met with the census because we're getting ready to do another census. And he said that they calculated that the 25,000 number that we've been working with is only about 60% of what we had in 2010. So
Why did they think we were so undercounted?
It just happens, you know, knocking doors, people that return or fill out the census, and
So the Constitution, I don't know why I didn't look it up. I heard this, so you know, maybe they were making it up. It was NPR. The Constitution is quite clear that you count the number of people there, not the number of citizens or the number of voters or the number of, you know, people who have the same color skin as the majority. You count every single person when you're figuring out what a population is, and that's really important, right? When you're getting federal grants and things, a lot of them are population, so if you're undercounting, you may not be getting...
Even sales tax, even state sales tax is based off of population, and we always lose in that battle. Our crime rate is based off of that. So even though we fluctuate 75 to 80,000 people in a day, or at least the pass-through, that many people create the crime that we can only then divide by our nighttime population. So we always lose. So you'll hear reports that South Salt Lake has the highest crime in the state of Utah. Well, when we triple in size and we're the only city that does that, we will always have the highest crime rate. And so it's super frustrating.
People out from coming in every day, you know, and put some gates up.
You know, there's pros and cons both ways.
Okay,
you know, stats.
But when you do this, and you have an immigrant population,
we do,
right? I mean, significant. I suspect it's better. It's population-wise, it's significant. And traditionally, they're undercounted. So then maybe that's part of the reason. And how are you going to try to? Let me ask you this in a broader way: how can our big city mayors? How can we make sure that everybody's getting counted when there's some threat of intimidation by?
So our plan, because we do know that we have that type of a population, is we have really built relationships with our families in the community based off of our Promise South Salt Lake program and our after-school programs. So we have parents that trust us with their kids every day. And so we're going to set up a lot of family nights for the families to come in and be able to fill out their census information with a Promise employee. So that they feel comfortable and not intimidated. But we really feel strongly about capturing, you know, that part of our community because it's an important part of our community, and we don't want them to feel like they're not welcome or intimidated to get that information. And our community with our limited resources and making it all electronic, we kind of know we've got our work cut out for us to.
Those are the interesting things of governing an area that a lot of citizens don't think about. I mean, you know, just important to you for funding reasons, reporting reasons, all sorts of reasons, that the census accurately counts your folks.
It's a really big deal.
Yeah. A lot of folks would never realize that.
Yeah. So we've had a lot of conversations about it. I'm sure we have not figured out everything, but we do feel like we have a fairly good plan going into next year.
Well, it sounds terrific. What is your budget?
It's $30 million.
And how much is my budget?
10 times. Yeah.
330.
Yeah.
That was a trick question.
Yeah.
How many police officers do you
So with the funding that we just received from the legislation, we'll have 72 sworn.
Well, that's pretty good, huh?
Yeah. Again, we have to have a police force for the daytime population,
Right.
not the nighttime population. So again, that story gets skewed too, because it's like, why does South Salt Lake need so many? Must because there's highest crime. But no, it's
Yeah,
not
you
that.
need all sorts of infrastructure to
Yeah.
take care of peak population.
Yeah, we're not a bedroom community.
So the bedroom communities have the best of all worlds, right? I mean, they don't get a big influx, and they just kind of are around.
Well,
what do we do about that?
So sales tax, when that was changed
When
in
was that?
2006, and then we were given a 10-year window to grow out of that, it was a $3.8 million deficit for our $30 million budget. So it was, it was rough.
More than 10% of your whole budget. So,
Yeah.
so explain that to somebody who's not a kind of tax nerd. So it used to be we don't have to say what the formula is exactly, but
it used to be based off point of sale.
The point of sale. So
Yeah.
if you've got all those people in your city, like Salt Lake, we double size. You go more than double.
Yep.
So we were getting where the people were making the sale. So as people come into the city, they spend it, but that's fair because we're
money.
doubling, and they're spending the money there because they're working there and they're coming in and they use the service. But the legislature, made up mostly of suburban and rural guys, said
It was really Davis that pushed that, a bedroom community that.
Who is this Davis?
You could argue that they zoned out a lot of these commercial interests, but then are saying, well, it's not fair that South Salt Lake and Salt Lake and St. George get the sales tax.
But I would argue that at the level of, you have commercial trucks coming into your community that also weighs on your infrastructure. You have the additional traffic.
It's a huge burden.
It's a huge burden.
Yeah. So what do they change it to? And why did that make such a big difference?
Because it was based off of population.
Right. So so they said, so they took money out of population, and what did they put it
point
to?
of sale, right? They took it out of the point of sale.
Okay.
Part of the
from
equation.
population.
Yeah.
So they'd say, okay, you got
And
this
then
many
went to
people on your
population.
official rolls.
Yeah.
And we don't care how much is spent there. If it's spent in South Salt Lake, you got to give it off to
So
Davis
Salt
County.
Lake, South Salt Lake's sales tax revenue, a lot of it went up to Davis County.
So the biggest losers was South Salt Lake, Murray, Town of Alta, Riverdale. And I think there was one more, but I can't think of it.
We didn't lose though. Salt Lake City.
Not as much as because we're all smaller and population wise. So you guys.
But you don't like my idea of putting a tax on foreign workers coming in.
I never heard that idea.
So all those.
From outside of South Salt Lake.
Yeah, Davis County comes to work in South Salt Lake.
You have to be careful how you say that.
You charge them to come in, and a worker's coming in fee, a bedroom community trespasser worker fee.
I think legislation would then change.
We'll put a pin in that one.
Okay, all right. I guess we're not doing.
I know it's a very touchy
Could
subject.
that be the first thing we could work together on?
Oh, heavens, yes.
Yeah.
Let's do
And
this.
Davis County, we could emphasize that.
Yeah.
No power up there in the legislature anymore, is there?
None.
Yeah.
So I came down for the 24th to Shades. So on just south of 21st and 3rd West. It was very nice.
Yeah, one of the breweries we were just talking about.
Yeah, it was fantastic. Yeah, so walked around the area. It was fantastic.
Yeah, you see the murals?
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, super impressed with
So
what
now
you
we
did.
have 20 murals because we've had our second mural fest this last May.
Oh my.
And you got to come next time. Mural Fest was so fun. I volunteered for it. It's just a huge party.
Yeah.
All of the restaurants and breweries, everybody had their stuff out, and all this art. And the arts community here is amazing.
Did you go out of your way to say, okay, we want this kind of an industry in our city?
We did actually. So we were National League of Cities and Towns was in Austin, and some of these people would say, while you're there, check out Rainey Street. It's this neighborhood that has these big old homes that have been transformed into restaurants, to bars, to breweries, distilleries. Like just it has its own energy, and so while we like new build, we also like utilizing our existing buildings, right? And I guess upcycling. And so we really designated this area of the city to, be walkable, have the art there, have, the more of the nightlife. So yeah.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
So it really kind of starts there and then goes to the water tower. And you should check out Level Crossing.
Level Crossing
They
is
are
right in the shadow of the water tower, and that whole stretch is walkable. But it's awesome for that's where the density goes, and it makes sense there. It makes sense. Younger people, they don't want to take care of a yard, and they can walk to all of these little hot spots.
I ran into a couple that said, we were just down on West Temple, that stretch, and they said, you guys are the Brooklyn to Manhattan for South Salt Lake to Sun Lake.
Sure.
And I was like, yay.
Yeah,
we are.
Okay, so do a plug for the next May.
Oh, well, first we have one Crafttoberfest on October 5th, and that's in the exact same area.
Alcohol in this city.
No, craft. So anything craft, like art.
I thought you like craft beer.
Well, that too,
crafts
but anything
and
craft.
beer.
That's
There's
our
too much alcohol in South Salt Lake.
Is there?
And, I hate to be the one to bring it up. I'm just saying. It's,
all right.
Your Jim, mellow you out a
yeah,
little
of course. So, tell me about your experience of being mayor for 10 years. Because you remember what your words were to your previous boss. You said it's mean, and what did you say?
I said people are mean and politics suck.
And politics suck.
And politics suck. So have you changed your mind?
No.
After 10 years.
But there are some awesome days, and when you look at what has happened in our community over those 10 years, I think that we've turned a corner as a community. I think we have, we have people that are excited. I had somebody say, like, South Salt Lake is the place to move right now. Like, it's the hot, up and coming place. And so, whether that, we were, I was responsible for all of that, I would never say that, but I think, having a vision and really trying to...
but it still sucks, and people are still mean.
Yeah, there's some really rough days.
And it's just the way it is in politics, and if you can't stand the kitchen, move to the burrito.
Yeah, nope, my skin has definitely thickened over 10 years.
Okay, I want you to answer this one honestly.
Okay.
When you go to the grocery store, do you ever put on the hat and shades and try to...
So actually, I have found out when I wear my hair up, people don't recognize me. Yes, but I do sometimes put my hat on. Yeah, see?
How long typically does it take you to get through a grocery shopping trip?
It depends. So Winco is interesting because I always run into people there. And
I should ask, do you buy groceries in South Salt Lake, or do you...
I absolutely do.
Okay.
All my sales tax dollars come back to South Salt Lake.
Have you been to Costco in Salt Lake?
I have.
Okay.
It's a, you can get certain things at Costco, but,
Okay, so you shop here. How long does it typically take you to get through a shopping trip?
It takes a while. In fact, my 11-year-old, when I took office, he's almost 12, so he was 2 when I took office. And it took him a while to figure out that I was the mayor, and I don't know if it was because it was like he put it together with a SpongeBob, cartoon or something about the mayor is this type of person. And they were talking to me or introducing me at the 4th of July parade kickoff. And I sit down, and he's my mini-me. And so he's sitting next to me. He goes, "Mom, you the mayor?"
The mayor?
And I said, "Yeah." He was 4. And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "That's so freaking awesome." And he said it so loud,
Yes,
everybody laughed. But he's really, it was so funny because he is that kid that will just go sit down and he'll just wait for me to have a conversation.
Wow.
Yeah. Because that's all he's ever known.
Yeah.
So he's not mom.
No.
Mom.
No. He'll go sit down and he'll just know that this is what happens when we go to the grocery store. And I actually did.
The 4-hour bike ride.
Yeah. I actually did take him out of recreation here because I wanted to be his biggest cheerleader and support him in baseball. So I put him up in Crown Colony. And I didn't tell anybody who I was. I just wanted to be Jackson's biggest cheerleader. And so But yeah, so yeah, people see you and they're like, oh, I was gonna tell you this, and oh, I need to talk to you about that. And so usually I just hand my business card and I'm like, oh, that's awesome. You know.
So you put them in the league outside the city, so you can cuss at the.
No, I don't even. I even still stay up on the banks of the Crown Colony. You know.
We have a hard Facebook live stop
right now
in 2 minutes, so you have a minute.
Let's do it right now. I'm gonna tell all of our audience listening, Mr. Zuckerberg called personally to say only 4 hours at a time and then you're off. So we decided we're gonna do it our own way. We're gonna quit every 3 hours and 58 minutes and say to you, Sarah's going to get you free ice cream if you will turn this right back on. So right now we're going to go away for 2 minutes, and then we'll be right back and we'll finish up with our great guest. So right now, do svidaniya, as we say in Russian, and we'll be right back. So stay with us. Really come back, please.